Support for Zapped to the Past is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 4 million satisfied men worldwide who can trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. That's 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code ZAPPED20. That's ZAPPED20 at manscaped.com. Now, if my maths is correct, that's about 8 million balls.
Hello and welcome to episode 73 of Zapped to the Past. I am Adrian Mills and I'm joined as always by Graham Raddings. If you haven't listened before, this is a podcast where we discuss games that were released for the Commodore 64. Last week we looked at our first batch of games from issue 33 of Zap 64, which we are in no way affiliated with. And we were jarred by Jack the Nipper 2, dulled by Driller, and bored by Basil the Great Mouse Detective. This week we continue our look at the games in January 1987, along with what was also going on in the UK albums that month. So Graham, inform us of the order of events for this week.
In this famous Michelin-star a la carte restaurant taster menu, including a terrapin egg bathed in seagull beak bubble compote, refried horse eyelid glazed with smoothed puffin wax icing, thrice folded slightly warmed narwhal fin served with cuckoo spit foam reduction, and crushed wasp and excess liposuction remnant ice cream of an episode. We take to the polygon-filled skies in the wake of a legend as we explore the multitude of blocky aircraft renditions in the somewhat chuggy Chuck Yaeger's Advanced Flight Trainer, fly and blast slowly through the intense alien sine wave attack patterns in the more demo, less game logic infused and somewhat misnamed Radius, try our hand at some less than classic non-sport such as sack racing, plate balancing and pole climbing in the nice looking but otherwise funless alternative world games, and scoot around yet another maze full of dirt, this time in the guise of 3 robots looking for frozen gingerbread men in the familiar Survivors. If that last course of mint air freshener on toast didn't get your taste buds high-fiving, and the next course of oven-battled land crab in oily ant coup de grace has enlarged your eyeballs to stomach size, we also get our flickery tetronomos in a row and explore the unusually arty and hypnotic world of the C64 version of Tetris. Take to the vector skies again, in yet another helicopter simulation, this time taking on the varied but unconnected missions in the oddly suggestive Thunderchopper. Explore the odd fusion of fruit machine and multi-choice questions in the cheap and cheerful Trivial Fruit. Sprint left and right while spurting mid-level only flames at a whole bunch of odd enemies in the very tight corridors of Trantor, the Last Stormtrooper, before finally running, jumping and throwing our way through a classic arcade conversion, albeit 4 years too late to the party, in the impressive Track and Field. Another mixed bag of titles. 1988 has started out reasonably well, though I'm still seeing some fork in the eye 1 frame per second dullness. Bah! Away with you, demon.
Nice. Okay, that's games. That's some games to look at. It was a problematic week. We found it was a problematic week. I think there's something to do with the heat. Something was going wrong. There was lots of stuff.
Heat.
Lots of heat this week.
Too much heat.
It was very hot this week, wasn't it?
It hit about 45 degrees in my office. I'm like, that's quite warm, that. My computer started to fail.
Oh, good Lord.
It started. I know it felt like an episode. It felt like watching Tron. It was all getting a bit de-rezzed in my office. So.
Oh, no. Should have given it an orange, and it could have sucked the orange in and taken the juice out of it and cooled it down.
Here goes nothing, here goes something, or whatever it is he says. Yeah,
whatever gibberish he says, yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, it's been very hot this week, so I think that has either affected something because we had trouble getting some of these games to work for both of us, so we'll do the best we can. It is what it is. But there you go. So yeah, it's been hot, but there you go. I'm still being haunted by my pigeon. That's still cooing away. The heat didn't get rid of it.
It's still out there, is it?
It's still out there singing Robert Palmer at me.
Told you what to do. Get a great big fist-sized rock and smash it to pieces.
It's on the roof.
It's not neighbour-friendly, but...
No, if I tried to climb up on the roof, then I feel I've got death awaiting.
You don't need to climb up there. You don't need point blank. You've got to, just aim with a rock. I mean, it's not hard. Just hit the nest.
There's no nest.
The end of that.
Just a pigeon. I don't think pigeons have nests.
Maybe a high velocity BB gun might do the trick.
I'm not killing the pigeon just for singing roll
of
power.
It's a free world.
What, Trantor? Well, if it was Trantor style, it was anything below knee height, I wouldn't be able to hit it. But we'll come to...
Keep on cooing in the free world. Flamethrower. Not anymore, you're not.
That'd do it.
Not on my watch.
No, not on a watch. Oh God. Anyway, we've done the cover. Should we just get into some games and just get on with this?
Let's do this.
Let's get into the first one then. And Graham, you had the thorough pleasure of going all out in Chuck Yaeger's Advanced Flight Trainer. How did you find it?
I actually went and didn't I? Chuck Yaeger's Advanced Flight Trainer. Good old Chuck Yaeger. Brigadier General Charles Elwood Yaeger, to you and me. Born in 1923, February the 13th. Sadly passed away December the 7th, 2020. Good innings, that. He was a United States Air Force officer, flying ace, and record-setting test pilot who, in 1947, became the first pilot in history confirmed to have exceeded the speed of sound in level flight. That is pretty cool, isn't it? It is pretty cool. He's referred to by many as one of the greatest pilots of all time and was ranked 5th. That's not the greatest pilot of all time, but I'm just saying. I didn't decide that. And ranked 5th on Flying's list of the 51 heroes of aviation in 2013. Throughout his life, he flew more than 360 different types of aircraft over a 70-year period. Now, that is a long time in the air, isn't it? And continued to fly for 2 decades. Goodness me, that guy could fly.
He's got very tired arms.
Absolutely. Boy, were his arms tired. After retirement as a consultant pilot for the United States Air Force, Chuck Yaeger is an incredible guy in terms of that kind of stuff. Okay, just establishing that. In the UK, at this time, probably no one's ever heard of him. But that doesn't matter.
Probably not.
Probably not. I'd never had when I was back in 1988. I'd never heard of Chuck Yaeger. I remember seeing this game advertised thinking, who's Chuck Yaeger? Turns out he's a crazy, crazy talented flying ace. Anyway, so this game allows a player to test pilot 14 different types of aeroplane, including the Bell X-1, which Chuck Yaeger piloted to become the first man to exceed Mach 1. So that's the one he broke the sound barrier in. That's incredible stuff. This game is embellished by Chuck Yeager's iconic and laconic commentary. So I wouldn't say it was any of those things. I think he just comes up with sarcastic comments about if you don't fly very well. So if you crash your plane, you get kind of, you screwed the pooch on that one, or you're not doing very well, or what was that crap? Get out of that airplane, you stupid arsehole. So in this game, you can fly 11 real aircraft, that not obviously real aircraft, but simulations of real aircraft, and 3 experimental aircraft that were designed by the developers of the game. So not real ones then, just made up shit.
So it sounds like Homer's car to me.
It looks like Homer's car. The fictional experimental aircraft in this were named after the people who worked on them. So obviously there's the I Crash a Lot Johnson's Crash a Lot plane. There's the Smash into Mountain jet fighter. No, I'm not joking. The real aircraft in this are the Bell X-1, the Cessna 172, the Douglas X-3 Stiletto, the General Dynamics F-16, the Fighting Falcon. The F-16 is a very famous airplane, isn't it? The Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird. Amazing aircraft, that. Crazy.
I used to have a model of that hanging from my ceiling.
So did I, and I think every teenage guy about sort of around our age, I think we all had some of these. I also, did you have the FA-18 Hornet, the McDonnell Douglas FA-18 Hornet? If you did, that's another one. The North American P-51 Mustang, I thought that was a car. Don't fly so good. The Piper P-828 Cherokee. The Sopwith Camel. Goodness me, the Sopwith Camel. You hadn't flown one of them before. Maybe me. The Spad SX3.
Spad?
The Spad, the SPAD, the Spad. And these, good old Spad.
Okay.
The Flying Spad. And the Supermarine Spitfire, of course, the Spitfire, the amazing, legendary Spitfire. And the experimental aircraft, these aren't named as excitingly as those. The Grace Industries XPG-12 Samurai. Okay. The Hillman Limited XRH-4 Mad Dog.
That sounds like a car.
And it does. And the Lerner Aeronautics XNL-16 Instigator. Okay.
That sounds like something else.
So this game is a flight simulation game in 3D, or filled 3D-ish, where you can either fly any of those real aircraft in sort of ways, or you can fly the experimental ones. It's presented in extendo load. what I call extendo load, which is where it's all disk-based, so it takes forever to do anything. It seems to take ages to load stuff in this.
Yeah.
So it takes a good while from putting the disk in and saying load, typing in load, whatever it is, and going from that to sort of, the image of Chuck Yaeger that appears, which admittedly is okay. The graphics of that loading screen are quite good. Although I thought it looked more like George Peppard in the A-Team, really, than Chuck Yaeger, but okay.
Did he have a plan?
He had a cigar, and his things always come together, don't they? Anyway, So once you get past that, you start with your options, which are intro flight, test flight, airplane racing, formation flying, and flight instruction. So those are your options to control the things in this game. Intro flight is just a demo, which you can watch. Now, that had me full for a while, because I thought that might be your first attempt at flying. It just started in your head. Turns out it's not. You're just watching somebody fly the plane. It took a while for me to figure that out, because I was controlling it going, you're not going the way I want. Stupido. Yeah, stupid me. But it gives a good taste of how this game runs, which is slowly and jerkily. So get used to that. In test flight mode, you can pretty much chop and change between aircraft. So there's 16 scenarios, and by pressing the Commodore key, it brings up a menu which you can then alter to change into different airplanes out of all the airplanes you can fly. So you can try different ones and fly around in them. Exciting, that. What you'll quickly realize is that they're different shapes flying over a depressingly slow landscape of nothing. But we'll come to that. Airplane racing is a one-on-one flight race in which there's 5 different scenarios, and you need to follow a target line and aim for the gates to fly through. Your time is clocked as you do. Yeah. These all sound really exciting. They are nothing like this in the game. Nothing. Formation flying, which I found was the most confusing thing of all time. See, you've got to fly, obviously in formation with another jet fighter, but the only key you've got really to fly to is a vapor trail behind the lead aircraft, which I kind of found next to impossible to figure out what the hell I was doing. I would think my version of formation flying would have been more exciting, because I was well out of formation. I was all over the place. I was angering the other pilots, I don't doubt that. This is like if one of the Red Arrows just shot off and did his own thing for a while and sort of flew around and just dangerously close to the aircraft going, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. That would be I think that's more exciting. And then there's flight instruction, which is the most complex of all of the things, where you receive basic, advanced, or fancy aeronautical maneuver tuition. What this actually means in reality is trying to control the small square cursor reticule thing inside a moving box, which is A, horrible to do, and B, not fun at all, because all the fun of flying is taken away because it just feels like you're just trying to control a box inside a box. Not very nice, that. So I attempted that quite a few times. I could tell you now it didn't really end well in any of those situations. And you can actually, that and the formation flying, it records those things and you can replay them back. If you're feeling really sadistic and you want to see what happens if an idiot gets in control of a SR-31, SR Blackbird or whatever it was. In my instance, it didn't end well. Didn't end well for anyone, that. So in that particular one, the flight instruction, I never knew exactly what I was doing at any point. And apart from anything else, I just didn't realize how crap I was at this game, or crap I wasn't going to be at any of these events. And that's just kind of that refreshing recording was kind of a reminder of how crap I am. So it's like someone recording you at your worst and going, hey, watch this. This is how crap you were. So it's like crap cam for me. It wasn't very good. There's 10 viewpoints in the game as well, which is things like forward with controls, forward without controls. There's a whole plane view from the back. There's a map option as well where there's a 9 times zoom on any of these screens. So you can just zoom in for reasons of mathematical improbability. I'm not sure why you'd need to zoom 9 times into the cockpit of a plane from 6 miles away, but you can if you want to do that. So look, all of this is all kind of moot. So this is a game with what is leveraged as 3D filled in graphics. It's filled in 3D. So it's like, I suppose it's flying Freescape. Now, Freescape wasn't known for its great speed, and neither is this. Neither is this at all. So, okay, look, ambition is good I think ambition is a good thing in games. I think it is. And we all know that later down the line, flight simulators and derivatives of this kind of thing become mega popular. We all know that. I mean, even games like Diddy Kong Racing and things like that have a kind of a fun flight sort of vehicle in there you can fly around. And so there's mileage in that kind of fun stunt flying about. We saw this in what was that previous game that we saw where you could fly a stunt plane around? Oh, the Microprose one. Where it was a little tiny plane. Acrojet. So we know there's mileage in this kind of thing. And there's probably loads of people that might like this. It's interesting, really, I suppose, that in this issue of Zapped, we've got Driller with its freescapiness, and now we've got Chuck Yaeger in the kind of flying freescape, I suppose, really. So it's that kind of filled in, poly, geometric 3D. It's clearly on the radar of the games designers at this point, and the programmers and all the publishers. EA is also kind of famous for its ambitious and pushing the envelope of games on the C64. It's done that quite a lot in its time, hasn't it? EA, they've been responsible for quite a few things that are a little bit out there. And I admire all of that, I do. But I don't feel the revolution of any of that when I'm chugging through the boring 8-bit sky in what looks like a play school model of an aeroplane made out of boxes, fairy liquid bottles, and double-sided sticky tape for speed. Nor do I get particularly fizzy when I'm juddering painfully over a series of large 3D blocks on what I guess is the ground. It is impressive that back in 1988, this was even a notion that somebody had. And crunching those numbers into the C64 and the CPU inside of it is just bonkers. It's bonkers. But unless you can suspend your disbelief to 1 frame a second and you're happy with blocky geometric shapes as your kind of, your background for this game, this isn't going to start any fires if you're not happy with that kind of suspension disbelief. You've really got to let that go. Mm-hmm. And for me, it made no difference if it was turbo speed or God knows what, or propeller driven or whatever the aeroplane was that it was flying, whatever technique, whatever plane it was. It wasn't any fun at all, and it was too slow. Simple as. I think the killer thing here is that this is simply out of the realms of realistic achievability on the hardware of the C64. It is hopelessly outgunned. Even the demo coders of today are only just pushing speedy 3D around the screens of a C64. And they've been at it for 20 years. So it's not like it's outside of the gaming context for gaming later on, but this is just not possible, really. Filled in poly 3D on a C64, no matter how you try and code that, is always going to be slow and ploddy and unforgiving. And I just don't think it's how the C64 machine was conceived. I think it's based on that old arcade idea of hardware sprites, scrolling backgrounds, and simpler arcade style logic. So this is not a CPU that's going to push a lot of maths around at speed, and this is just simply proof. It is not the C64's forte. It is not. Freescape proved it, and I get it. You're relying on lots of people's ability to let that go, and maybe there's people out there. But for me, this leaves this game in the parking lot of ambitious ideas for me. If you can handle the slowness of this, and you like other flight sims that are like kind of chuggy, maybe the Vector ones or whatever, maybe there's something here. I have, nor never will, get excited by things like this. I just don't. It's a technological lesson for me about hardware limitations and what they look like on a machine that is not capable of delivering the mathematic dexterity required to deliver filled poly 3D. It simply is. So, I mean, apparently Chuck Yaeger was an advisor on this game all the way through. And I can imagine when he saw it, he was probably blown away by what he saw, because it would have been a miraculous thing in 1988 to see this kind of thing moving around. Like, wow, is that really? Yeah. No, is that an airplane? And I get all that. It's futuristic stuff. And all love to Chuck aside, this is not, and it would never will be, a thing that excites me, because I just see it as limitations. I just see hardware problems, and I see slowness and chuggy graphics and boring. And I want to like these things a little bit, but move me to an Amiga, move me to the computers of more modern CPUs, and okay, I'll be a bit more forgiving. But the C64, do sprites, do graphics like that, do shoot 'em ups, do stuff that it's great at, and when it's really applied. Don't do chugging nasty 3D garbage like this, because I find it horribly frustrating. Whether you're trying to aim for the stars and shooting for the moon or whatever you're trying to do, I'm sorry, you're missing me and the target. I am not your target audience for this game. What about you?
Well, I'd like to offer a second opinion, but I couldn't get it to run. This is one of those where I had major problems. So I don't know whether it just wouldn't run on the PC version of our emulator or not. Obviously, I've not got the original. I just couldn't. I tried various different cracks of it, various different downloads, non-cracks, anything I could do to try and get this to run, and I just got various disk jams and just hanging and wouldn't run. So I can't really comment on it. What I did though is I went off to YouTube, did the next best thing, and I did some secondary research and watched the only video I could see was from a German YouTuber. I forget the name actually. I couldn't understand a word that was being said because it was all in German, and I don't speak German. So I had the pleasure of not understanding the video I was watching where somebody flew a plane around really slow motion. It was a very odd experience because I didn't like anything that I couldn't understand anything, and I didn't like what I was seeing. It kind of just was what I was expecting, which was slow 3D, kind of in the model of Acrojet or something like that. It looked like that. I thought it was going to be like that. The video I watched with some 3D, filled in, some nice 3D. There is actually another video on there where somebody's running through some kind of turbo thing, and it looks very nice, very sped up. But obviously, it's incredibly sped up, so it's not representative of the real world. So I don't know. I can't offer a second opinion on this. I'm going to guess though that I'm not going to be far away from. If I had got played this, I'm probably not going to have been a million miles away from where you landed. I think I would probably be in the same ballpark. We said it last week about Driller. It's just the machine's not built for 3D. It's not. Stop doing it. It's slow, especially filled in 3D. You can barely do lines.
It's. I think it's now becoming. It's almost like they really want the machine to be able to do things that it can't do because the Amiga and the things are out there. Just do this on the Amiga, then. Don't torture people on the C64 with this nonsense. Just go and do it on an Amiga, which does have the CPU power and the graphic power and everything to really push these polygons around. C64 is not for that. It's just not.
No, it's not. There are good things you can do with the C64. Filled in 3D graphics is not, especially when you're running all the AI routines and the controller stuff and everything else that has to all run in that very, very small window of opportunity to do anything. It's not good because it just, slow response and everything. What?
Is there anything more depressing than crashing an aeroplane in 1 frame per second? I find it's just bleak. It's like, death. And it's like, just... It's not nice, is it? I mean,
sounds like a film.
Not nice ever.
Like a film by Wim Wenders or something like that, or
it is.
Show. Or who's that guy who did a Hog Booker Right? He'd probably do it.
Well, the thing is, you don't want to crash an aeroplane, right? If you're flying a test plane or whatever, so you'll be pulling up on the joystick, but you know that no matter what you do, your controls are not going to operate quick enough for the frame and the frame rate to catch up with you to be able to do anything meaningful. So even if you try and pull up, you're going to hit the ground because it's like pull up. Crash. What a shame. If only my controls operated at maybe 2 frames a second, I might have survived that crash. But
then
Chuck Yaeger comes along and goes, well, you did crap there. You're like, oh, thanks, Chuck. You try flying a 1 frame per second jet, you bloody jet fighting fool.
Absolutely. Let's see you break the speed of sound at 1 frame a second.
Exactly. You won't break the speed of Brown with that. Nobody should break that.
It has been done though. It was a horrible thing. People felt the shockwave 3 miles away.
It's a terrifying thought. Don't split the Brown and don't try and break the speed of Brown. But that's a debate for another day.
Yeah, isn't that an album by Bread?
Don't split the Brown.
Or Speed of Brown.
The speed of Brown. It sounds, in Commodore 64 terms, horrific.
It really does. Anyway, there we go. Chuck Yaeger, I'd like to say that that's the only flight game we have this week, but I'd be lying because there's another one coming up later. Let's hope that that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on into our next one. Budget land we're in. Budget shooter. This is Radius. £2. Yeah, it's a budget shooter. There you go. Next. Okay.
On we go.
Anyway, according to the back of the box, you're a good pilot. Some say the best, but no one's ever crossed the radius and lived to talk about it. So you need to take the controls in this fast, all-action, multi-level shoot-'em-up. That's the back of the box. They love this hyperbole, don't they, on the back of the box? It's always gets you by it, I suppose. Anyway, this was coded by Mick and Ian Jones and had visuals from Robert Whittaker and Mike Barham. Mike Barham went on to work on a lot of the modern Lego games, being a designer on Lego City Undercover. It's okay by me. That game's
good
great.
Egg.
Yeah, absolutely. Best GTA game there is.
It is.
Anyway, it's a budget shooter, this, and that budget has not stretched to some kind of speed module for the ship you have to control. There's only so much they had to spend money on, and they went, well, it moves. Can we put a bit more speed in it? No.
It fires really long bullets.
One at a time. So what is this? This is a left-to-right continuous scroller that owes a lot to Delta in a visual style and the way it plays, because that main ship is very similar. It's just, like Delta, continuous left to right, just keeps on going and it keeps on going, and you try and survive. And as you keep going, as you pilot your changing coloured craft over a backdrop of various space stuff, waves of aliens will appear from the right and move across the screen. All you have to do is survive and make your way to the end of the game, and that's it. That's it. You just got to shoot everything, try and survive, and if you make it to the end, well done. There's a really crap ending screen to this, which I had to look at elsewhere because I never got there because there's ridiculous problems with it. So it's not really worth it. There's also this weirdly as well, on the title screen it says press F5 or something to play a different type of game. So you press F5, there's like a small Phoenix style mini game. It's not, kind of like Phoenix, where you have to blast away at a constantly scrolling triple layer shield. So there's like 3 layers to shield, and they move left to right, and as you fire it, bits drop out of it, and then if you make it through the whole of the second layer and third layer, and you blast a hole through. And there's a boss lurking behind it, and you have to shoot this boss 4 times through the gaps that you create. And then if you do that, it resets the shield and you repeat. I'm not quite sure what the whole point of this was. I did read somewhere that I think in the review in Zapped, that if you manage to beat one of the boss ships that turn up from now and again, it cuts to that game. So I don't know how it works. I didn't see it when I played it, so I just found it in that mini game bit. The problem is the shooter part of this is very barren and frustrating. There are no power-ups or upgrades of any kind, and your base speed and ability to only have one bullet on screen at any one time feels like something that was intended to be upgraded but possibly got left out during development. It feels like you're at the base level, so when you start, like in something like Synapse or in Delta, you quickly get upgraded. And it's like they thought, oh yeah, that's the point, we're going to make this, so we'll code that. And then they forgot to code it. And either someone wanted, no, it needs to go out. Yeah, we hadn't done the upgrades, doesn't matter, just get it out. And that's what it feels unfinished. There are numerous backgrounds to get through, and there are even some very frustrating maze sections to try and navigate. But the problem is here, the lack of reward and sense of progress, because you're just bothered by the aliens come along in these waves. These kind of, we've got another shooter here where the aliens are living by sine waves. So we've got lots of sine wave enemies come floating on, usually way too fast for you to dodge or anything. So you usually end up dead. And because you can only shoot one bullet at a time, you can't really pepper the screen. This is it's the opposite of a bullet hell shooter. This is I don't know what you call it, bullet anathema. There's only one bullet. And when it hits something, you can fire again. But if you don't hit anything, you got to wait. You got to wait till it goes all the way across the other side of the screen before you can fire another one. Rubbish. Because you just get killed by these waves of aliens and the waves are randomized as well, so you can't learn them. Oh, it's very annoying, and this gets very dull very quickly. It's £2. It got 49%. Yeah, right. There's really no reason to play this now. It's a poor man's Nemesis and Delta, and I'm not just poor as if you could only afford £2. It's poor as in you're not going to get any enjoyment out of this. You're really not, even for £2. And even if you got that second game hidden in there's just no reason to endure this. If they'd have given you power-ups and some rewards for the players, could have been okay. The visuals are quite nice. The backdrops are quite well drawn. The sprites are okay. I mean, the scrolling's quite smooth. Your ship is okay. So that side of it, the visual side of it, for a budget game, it's all right. It's not too bad. There's lots of different backdrops and things like that. And the sound is a concoction of really loud space shooter sounds that really burn into your brain after a while. That shooting sound is so loud and so persistent.
So loud.
Especially as the aliens get closer and you manage to fire a lot of it. It's like, hey, it's awful. But there's no progression in what you do. There's no feeling of accomplishment. There's no movement for you. And in this day and age, by 1988, when we're playing shooters, we expect progression. We expect power-ups, upgrades, different weapons, different ships, something to problem here. And also, just as a final note, shouldn't this be called diameter? Because it says nobody's crossed the radius. Because radius is only halfway across. It's no surprise no one has crossed it before. They're all stuck in the middle.
Yes, absolutely.
Ideally, this should be called diameter, not radius. I know it's a maths, it's a circular maths joke, but it bugged me. I was like, no one can cross a radius. Well, you can, but then what do? You haven't gone out the other side. Stupid. No. And it's, you can't work out the circumference. Well, you can, can't you? 2-hour pi or whatever it is. Anyway, this isn't very good. This is a bog standard shooter that's main problem is you're just too slow to deal with anything that coming towards you. We've seen this in loads of these shooters where you're not powered enough, you're not fast enough, you don't feel it feels more like a dodge 'em up rather than a shooter, because you end up just trying to dodge the aliens because you can't shoot them fast enough. I had no time for this after playing it for a bit. I didn't like this, and Sunday afternoon this would have not got very long on as far as I'm concerned. I didn't like Radius. What about you?
No. Interesting though. This is from the demo team, wasn't it, of Ian and Mick? So
is that who made it? Is it?
Yeah, I remember them from their Triad demo days.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Graphics and everything and scrolling, all very nice, but we said about other demo coders.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember them from their demo Bogman, which was actually a sort of a dancing guy on a toilet door, which was kind of cool. And there's some of the demos were crazy good techniques that they showed off. But what a mad thing this is. I didn't last long. As you rightly point out, you don't last long in this, do you? Because you can't actually shoot anything quick enough or avoid anything quick enough. So you're either going to die by being hit from the constant enemy waves and sine waves that come and sort of get in your way, and your bullets. Well, even if you do shoot them, the noise is going to drill into your soul after a while.
Yes,
so loud,
really
so blooming loud. But you don't emit bullets quick enough, so you've got no chance in this with no upgrades, nothing else. You've got no chance. So I'm not quite sure. Add to that the loud sound effects, and they're so loud. The graphics, like you say, the graphics and the coding techniques, all good here. And even that weird kind of MCP Tron / Breakout inspired mini game thing.
It was like Phoenix, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it just all felt to me like it was a load of code samples smashed together into an idea that didn't work.
Yeah. And that big scrolly text that goes across when you prepare to start, it's all demo coding.
Well, it's basically a demo with a little bit of game inside of it that doesn't make any sense to be there. So the big loud wah sound, the big scrolly thing with all the colours and the waviness and everything else. A demo is not a game, and this kind of proved it, didn't it? Now, they are very good coders, Ian and Mick. There's no doubt about that, but this isn't their finest hour. So it got 49%. I think that's a bit generous for what I played. But there you go.
Yeah.
I've not got nothing else to add to it because there's nothing more to it. They did better demos than they did this game, I'll tell you that much. And you can go on the CSDB and find them also. Go do that instead, because it's much more fun to watch their demos than play that game.
Yeah, there you go. Radius, away with it. Let's move along. I've got a couple more before we get to a break. So let's move along into our next one. And Graham, this is, well, it goes by two names. This Alternative World Games, or as it was known in the US, Sports Aroni. I don't know why.
A stupid name.
I don't know why. It came out under Epic as well, didn't it? There you go.
I'm guessing because it had the World Games name in it, there's some controversy around that. I don't know, and I don't care.
Maybe.
This is from Gremlin, the Gremlin graphics team. This is an unusual combination of people here. So you've got Gyula Hodi, Attila Korazanski, Gabor Pyongyor, and Antal Zolnai, are the coders. The graphics are by Janos Zana and Attila Horvath. And the music's by good old Benny Dalglish. Oh, Ben there. So I'm guessing this has been outsourced to some different area of Gremlin graphics anyway.
Well, it's the people that did water polo.
Right, okay. It's a humorous parody of kind of World Games, right, if you didn't get that from the title. But World Games was kind of already humorous, so not sure where they were going with that. And here you've got a different range of events to go out. Humorous, hilarious events, such as sack race, where you've got to do a sack race and avoid the manhole covers and the dog, which you can't avoid because the dog's sent from hell itself. The pile of plates, where you've got to sort of balance a stack of plates, boot throwing, river jump, pole climbing, run up the wall. Good old run up the wall. You remember that run up the wall game? We played that those, didn't we? Pillow fight, pogo stick, good old pogo stick, uncontrollable, annoying pogo stick. And then at the end of all of that, if you make it through that and can be bothered, you'll get an award ceremony for however you did in those events. So you start this off by entering your name, you choose your country. I actually quite like that selection phase. You got like this parrot that sort of, you type in your name and then you can choose the country where you get this little flag. And the parrot pulls out a sort of record, puts on a record player, and you get played a version of the national anthem. Only it's not the national anthems. That's the joke. They're kind of versions of tunes that are sort of associated with that country. So for France, you get the Can-Can. And for UK, you get Land of Hope and Glory, things like that. So a little bit of humour. Hilarious, that. And the parrot does a little dance and everything. Yeah, then load times occur. And it's that kind of loading. And sort of... So
then the world stopped spinning and the glaciers came down from the north.
Exactly. And they stopped coming and the people started coming.
And there was fish and plankton.
Plankton and sea greens. Anyway, so once you've got through that, you go to I like to call it the Confusatron, because here you choose the events you want to play
so weird. It's like it took me ages to work out what was going on.
By process of up and down VHS mini recorder graphic. Who doesn't choose things like that? That's the way you choose things. Never mind just bringing up the ones, clicking the button and highlighting a circle around the ones you want to play in kind of red or yellow or something like would indicate preference. No,
yes.
Here you have to press up and down with the joystick to choose the number, press the fire button, which makes it display on one of the mini screens, and work your way across doing that. And then once you've decided that, choosing whether you're going to compete or whether you're going to practice. And when you do that, you've set your sort of rules in stone. Remember, you can play multiple player in this. You choose your multiple players in the screen before that. So if you press enter, type in your name, press enter, choose your country, you then get option to do it again. If you press enter at that point, it's one player. If you choose another one, you can have another player. So you get through that, and obviously the dancing parrot. And that's as stupid as it sounds. Then you get to the VHS Selectatron, and you choose the events that you're going to participate in. I chose all of them, stupidly, because not all of them actually worked every time. Then you set about competing in said events. Now, they all control differently, and I'm actually not going to bore you with the different control mechanisms. The ones that I engaged with the most were sack race, because that's the one that seemed to work I tried this repeatedly in different ways. The original version of alternative world games that we had didn't quite work, so I tried the other one, which was called, what was it?
Sports-a-roni.
Sports-a-roni. Basically the same thing with some of the same problems. The sack race worked. I started the sack race, and you basically have to kind of control a jumping person in a sack going left to right with a dog chasing you, I think, although the dog wouldn't leave me alone and just kept tripping me up and I couldn't win the race.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to avoid the potholes by going up and down and sort of jumping, hopping in the front. If you fall over, you've got to sort of pick yourself up. And that's kind of the way of it. Now, the games all control slightly differently. And I think the ones I played later, which was I got a shot at the plates game, although it didn't work for very long. Pillow fight I played, and I think pole climbing and run up the wall. So I played most of them. They all control differently. They're not intuitive, what you call intuitive control mechanisms. No. So none of them controlled the way I would have expected to. And this is one of the great strengths of real Epix games. Now, when I say real Epix games, I'm going all the way up to Summer Games 2, and I'm including some of the events from Winter Games and some from World Games. But we all know that this one, although it's got World Games at the top, the events they've chosen and that style of events are leaning more towards the California Games style idea of Epix. Now that, for me, is a little bit of a problem, which I'll sort of come back to. But at the moment, we're presented with these games. Now, from a presentation point of view, the graphics actually are pretty good in this game. They're quite nice. They're quite nicely realized. They're quite colourful. And the animations are quite funny. And there is a nice sort of funniness to them, the way you control them. And they are the mini-games, such as they are mini-games, are quite good. But none of them control as you'd expect. They all get alarmingly difficulty spikes for no reason whatsoever. The sack race is hard because the dog keeps tripping you up, not because you're not good at sack racing. And that's stupid logic like that does my head in about all of these events. There's a reason to dislike every single one of these events, whether it's the controls, whether it's something stupid that happens, whether it's just the way that it kind of plays out. There's something wrong with each of them. The key thing that's wrong with them is that none of them are actual events of a thing. This is something we picked up on in California Games, that really for these kind of multi-event things to work like this, they need to be part of an event, I think. So they need to be part of a thing. So Summer Games 2 works really well because it's kind of a Olympics. And those events are akin to Olympic events. And that kind of works in that context. Winter Games works because they are of a Winter Olympics. So they're kind of that kind of thing. When you start throwing in erratic games like pillow fighting, you're heading down the kind of avenue that we were with that awful ocean game, that, what's it called?
It's a knockout?
It's a knockout type idea where the events and that all the sort of not the caveman, sort of the other one with the band of rock dudes that were fighting each other, Blood and Lust or whatever it was called.
Oh, Blood and Guts. Yeah,
so,
I've mentioned that.
So where the events are interesting in themselves and quite funny maybe for a bit, but they're not really a cohesive whole of events. No one's going to go to an Olympic event and go, you know what I'm looking forward to today? What is it, the 100 meters, the hurdles? Nah, not for me. Give me the sack race and boot throwing any day of the week. I'm looking forward to that. It doesn't happen, and that's because quirky events only work in a quirky way and for a short amount of time. And that's the problem with all of these types of things like this. They only work in quirky world. And the quirky world's a short-lived affair because if they're not funny and they're not hilarious, the reason Epix games are good is because they're real events with funny twists. So they've got but they're little twists. They're little funny things. They're not big things. This is kind of a great big ha, 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 ha. Imagine if World Games was full of really funny events like pillow fighting. And I don't want to imagine that because that's this game and it's not very funny overall.
No, it's not.
So it's not bad luck in this game, and it controls horrible as they are. Once you've got things moving, the actual animations and the sprites and the details are nice, but it's all wrapped in this game that makes no real cohesive sense. It's California Games outside of California. It's like the Aldi version of California Games when someone was like, what kind of games can we put in this? I don't know, pogo stick, pillow fight, chuck a rock, I don't know. It's the equivalent of putting, actually, let's put poo sticks in this. Stand on a bridge, chuck a stick and then see if it goes under. It's the same logic as what compendium games can we put in there that are not things that Epix would have done. But why not do the things? If you've already made a swimming game, here's an idea. Put a swimming event in it. Yeah. I just don't understand the logic of where they went with it. So I played through as much as I could of this. I didn't really enjoy any of it. I found the graphics and the visuals and it looked the part. The coding's, the coding is good. Zapped seemed to think it had this real twist of Epix about it. Oh, it's almost as good as Epix. I'm like, whatever you've been taking or smoking, reduce the dose because it's nothing like that. This is nowhere near in the same league as many of the good events from World Games, and it's certainly not in the same ballpark as Summer Games too. No matter if you put an award ceremony at the end of it. So I found this a frustrating array of erratic games that made no sense in cohesion. Most of them were difficult to control or had problems. Some of them didn't work anyway. I don't know if those bugs were legitimately game bugs or crack bugs or whatever. But either way, they had bugs. And some of these games were just unpleasant to play, unfun. And hilarity aside, my sides weren't splitting by playing River Jump in the same way that other stupid game when you jumped off the tower and headbutted the ground. Blood and Guts, when you're playing Blood and Guts, in the same way that didn't entertain me for the same reasons it didn't. I like events that make sense to be in an event thing. So I like Javelin. I like shot put. I like those things. Just do those. You could do those in a funny way if you want, but, make them a little bit quick if you want to. But you're going to be competing directly with epics. I don't think epics are a particularly good thing to parody, which is what they tried here. And it's been tried before. It stinks. I didn't like it. But what about you?
Yeah, no, I'm the same. This is, like I said, people that brought you water polo. It's an alternative take on games from around the world, but games that don't actually exist. Like you said, running up a wall is not a sport. It's not an event. It's not anything. It's just not. It's not anything.
It's just not. No, it's not any good.
No, and like you, I found this a pain to get working. I didn't know whether it was the emulator or whatever, but it's very buggy. It keeps failing. I had to try different versions. The ones I got running, I got the sack race. I played that a bit, but like you said, it's annoying. It should have been, nice and easy, like the rowing in summer games too. Yeah. Left and right, get it bounced. And if you slow down, just slow down. Not constantly falling over and being bothered by a dog. That just becomes frustratingly annoying very quickly. The boot throw, that was okay. I played decently, but it was really simple, like nothing to it much. The pole climbing, which is damn near impossible due to the odd controls. The river jump, where I could never fly off the pole despite me hammering at the fire button. At that point, I'd really had enough. I was like, look, I've got better things to do. It's hot. I'm bothered. This game's crap. There's some nice animation and visuals in this, like you said. And there are. Once it's going, it's a really smooth sprite animation and nice definition. And it's quirky and that's nice. But the controls I found all annoying. Nothing felt intuitive. And to top it all, when you're up against the computer, there's just no point. There's no point.
No.
They do the pole climb in 12 seconds. Something you will never, ever, ever do. Ever. You never get close. And they never miss a step in the sack race. Something you will do loads of times because the dog will just attack you. It's just stupid. What this shows to me is that, even in something like California games, which we didn't rate as highly as the others, there's a sense of design and thoughtfulness to the way the events play. And the AI is never foolproof. You play those kind of games and the AI slows down, it speeds up, it feels like you can beat it. In this, similar to what we said about Blood and Guts, and you mentioned that, and I mentioned it for another reason, there's little fun to be had in single player. The Blood and Guts AI was foolproof, impervious. You couldn't do anything. It was, stupid. But this is something that the game series has always excelled at. Even in single player, you feel like, in the fencing or whatever, there's still a sense of like, I've got a chance here in the bits with a two player. In this, it's just not, and it's not enjoyable. And it's just, you watch that guy just go up the pole, like, you're like, oh, well, you failed. I didn't even get going.
You're not as good as me. You're done.
Yeah, I just had no real desire to try and get the rest running, and that's all you. If this had been great, if those events had been wow, I'd have been like, right, I'm going to get all these events up and running, going to keep at it, but I just didn't.
Yeah, no, same.
So it tells you all you need to know about it. Really, this was it's a shame really, because there's a nice visual package around it, but there's a lack of thought to the controls for me, and just a lack of programming. Good AI is not just about making the AI foolproof and brilliant. So
they don't learn that with these stupid games, though, do they? Always the bloody same. It's something we've encountered quite a few times where you've got the impossible AIs. Stupid.
And I get it. It's an 8-bit machine, but epics do it. So
yes,
it can be done. Ball Blazer did it.
Yeah, fallibility is important if you're playing a game like this, if you're playing one player especially.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go. That's Alternative World Games. Got one more. Let's get into it because I don't want to spend any more time thinking about that one. Let us instead head to the future for Survivors, another budget title. £2. Yeah, the future. It's the year 2087. Once again, nuclear war has ravaged the Earth and left the survivors housed in underground hibernation domes. However, these domes have been severely damaged, leaving almost 1,000 people in danger of severe death if they are not rescued. Who could be sent Severe death, yeah. Who could be sent into the radioactive hellscape to get these people out? Well, not who, but what specialist droids are sent in, each with a unique power. So between them, they have all the tools at their disposal to rescue all these trapped people and get everyone out of these 7 levels of earthen disaster. So, it is obviously a port from the BBC.
No shit.
Yeah, as it looks very much like Repton and all those other maze games that haunted that machine. I couldn't find who did this version. This is on quite a lot of machines, actually. It seems to get ported all over the place, even like an MSX version. Moby Games lists Glyn Carey as doing the Spectrum and MSX versions, so I'm just going to assume he did them all, because I couldn't find mention of any others. There was no credits for anything else. So Glyn Carey, you have been credited with doing the C64 version of Survivors. Well done. If you didn't, well done. Anyway, in this game, you control the 3 droids with the joystick, moving them left, right, up and down. It's a maze game. It looks like Repton and Boulder Dash zoomed in. It's that. So up, down, left, right, that sort of thing. You can flick between the droids by pressing the fire button or the buttons 1, 2, and 3 to choose them. So you've got these 3 droids and they've got different abilities. Droid 1 can dig through earth or dirt, and this is very important because the underground domes are chock full of dirt, and this must be cleared to allow the other 2 droids to move around. So think you're getting rid of the earth in Boulder Dash and stuff like that. Once you've chewed through it, it's black, and the other things, it's just empty. Droid 2 can teleport survivors out of the rubble. So you need to get Droid 2. Droid 2 is the most important one, really, because that's the one that rescues the survivors. The other 2 is the ones that get stuff out of the way. Droid 3 can push single boulders around to clear the way or trap enemies. So what we have here is Boulder Dash, but where each of the abilities has been separated out into a different droid. So whereas Rockford could chew through dirt, pick up diamonds, go into stuff and push boulders, that's been ripped apart and put into 3 different droids, and so it's made into a little bit more puzzly, should we say. The view is more zoomed in than Boulder Dash. It's more akin to Repton. It's quite zoomed in. Which means your view of the maze you have to navigate is obfuscated by the small viewing window. So you can't see much of the maze around you. And it's quite big. It scrolls around. It's quite big. And you've got to sort of navigate your way around. So it's easy to get stuck if you chew out the wrong bit of earth and you get your wrong droids caught behind somewhere, and that's what it is. So like Boulder Dash, there are enemies that patrol around. These are droids that have malfunctioned, I think, from all the radiation. You can avoid these. They go on set patrol path, or you can destroy them by trying to drop a boulder on their head. So either by chewing the earth out from underneath it and moving aside, or getting your droid 3 to push it onto their heads. As with all of these games, you move a grid space at a time, and you have to plan your way accordingly, making sure to leave room for each droid to fit through when you need them to either teleport humans out or push rocks out of the way. This was noted in Zap as being Repton crossed with Boulder Dash, crossed with Thunderbirds. And that's quite a good description. That's quite apt. That's pretty much what it is. Because Thunderbirds, you had the 2 ships. They each had different abilities. You had to squeeze them through and push stuff out and move them around and solve puzzles. And it's that. You've got 3 droids. You need to use them all to solve the puzzles, navigate the maze, get all the humans out. And basically that's it. So you've got to use all the droids, different abilities. It's easy to trap yourself. If you do, you can tap F1 twice to reset the level. Don't know why you have to do it twice, but you do. You have to tap it twice to reset the level, and that will help you so it resets level, so you get out of your trap thingy. Beware though, you can only do that 3 times before it's game over. So essentially you've got 3 lives. If you trap yourself 3 times, that's it, you're done. The visuals and sound on this game, well, they're basic at best. Showing why it was ported to machines like the C16. There's a version on there as well, because it's mostly expanded character graphics or zoomed in, and the scrolling's pretty jerky. So it looks like that other one we looked at. What was that other Realms, wasn't it? That was that other one. So it looked like that too. The scrolling's jerky. It moves. It doesn't particularly move very smoothly. It moves as you do. So it's like chunk, chunk, chunk. Moves about a grid space at a time almost. But the movement of the droids is fast as you move them around, working out the various puzzles to get the trapped humans off us. To be fair, under all that, there's a decent little puzzle game here. There's a solid level of enjoyment to be had from working your way through the maze and trying to work your way out. It's not going to win any Game of the Year awards. £2 if you like this kind of puzzler where some quick reactions are needed, a bit of planning, and that's going to see through. This would certainly have passed a Sunday afternoon. It's not terrible. You get past the visuals, and there's actually an okay game underneath them because it's that kind of Repton Boulder Dash thing at its heart. They've just split it out into 3 different things, which has kind of made it a bit different and a little bit more annoying, but it's a bit different. So this wasn't too bad. £2, you got 79%. I'd say that's about right. I didn't mind this. Once I got playing it, I played it for quite a while, got quite deep into it. It was all right. What about you?
It's an oddly familiar looking and sounding thing, isn't it? Obviously, like you say, influenced by Boulder Dash and Repton and any number of games that look exactly like this. I thought it was playable. It was $1.99, and it was quite fun in the way that Boulder Dash and Repton and all those other ones were kind of playable for the same reasons they were kind of playable. You're going to scoot around this game with that kind of noise, and you're going to eat a bit of dirt. And all right, I thought there was some decent puzzles and things to go out. The dynamic of having 3 different sort of things to do with different, I quite like that. It's okay. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking this is sort of £2. So if this had been full price, would have been going no, but it's £2, so okay. I think perhaps the view was obviously a bit too big in the window, so everything feels a bit cramped and zoomed in. Same thing we said about Repton, I think.
Yeah.
But I did like that you can switch between the player types. The idea of doing that was quite easy. the interesting part of this is kind of that mechanic around the 3 sort of robots thing. I quite like that. It doesn't offer much more than Balderdash or Repton do in any of those sort of situations. There's maybe a little bit more puzzling about that. Jury's out on that one. But for a budget game, I thought it was all right and really oddly peaceful. When I was playing this, I felt like a weird calm come over me. Like, I don't know why. Just scooting around, trying to find people. And even though those sort of people that were frozen in the sort of blocks looked kind of weird, they looked like gingerbread men that had been baked into a rock. But even then I was like, I'm just going to go around finding the gingerbread men. I need to get a Boulder guy, get him in, switch player. I was like, okay, yeah, it's just something oddly peaceful about playing it. It was just kind of calm and serene. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's because I came off the back of the frustrating Angathon that was Alternative World Games, but I just found this quite peaceful experience. It got a 79%, didn't it? £2 worth of game. It's okay. Survivors is a bit of a silly name for it, though. Why don't you just call it Repton Quite or whatever? Or I can't believe it's not Balderdash or whatever, but either way, it had all those component parts. All the things that are good about those other games are good here too. There's no, it's like if I created a shoot called Blemisys, and it was exactly the same as Nemesis, but it was Blemisys. It's all the good things about that shoot are the same. So there's nothing bad about the mechanics here because we've seen them all before. But it is cheap, I suppose, and maybe there's room for another Balderdash type clone. I don't know. It was all right. It's all right. This game, not bad.
Yeah. And you can, like I said, it's a port from another machine where probably they didn't have, I don't know, Balderdash on everything, wasn't it? So it's and Repton is certainly popular on the BBC.
It's ported from the Dragon 32 and the Auric Atmos.
It could very well be. It was listed for a lot of machines. Like I said, even the MSX, but it's
XMSX and the Rodrigo one, which was the guy at Highlander's computer that he made.
The follow-up to the Ramirez special.
Yeah. There can be only one. He smashed it up. Silly, that silly fool.
Did you make another one as a backup? No, there can be only one.
There can be only one. Oh. Did you make another copy of that game? No. Oh.
I don't do backups.
Okay. All right. Ramirez.com is going to be short-lived, I know, but okay.
That's true. But yeah, this is all right. It might have even started life on the C16. It would make sense because it looks like it could have been a C16.
I thought maybe it had C16 equality about it, didn't it? So
yeah, could very well have been. But there you go. That's Survivors. We didn't mind that one. That was all right. Probably the best of the lot this half.
Which is weird, but yeah, actually.
Yeah. And considering Chuck Yaeger's Advanced Flight Trainer somehow got 95%. Oof.
They said it was the fastest 3D they'd ever seen. That was what's his name?
Ludlow really slow.
That was Julian Rignall said it was the fastest 3D on the C64 so far, I think, or something. I'm paraphrasing, but something like that.
It probably is.
Maybe it was, but that's not saying anything, is it? It's like, well, it's the fastest. If the fastest is 1 frame a second, previous record-breaking speed was half a frame a second. Oh, wow, it is the fastest then, you're right. Well done,
3/4 of a frame per second.
Yeah. It's really fast. Yeah, they're great, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. All right, that's it. We're going to take a quick break. You can listen to some adverts. We will be back after this, where we will be looking at the albums that came out in January 1988. So please stay with us and we'll be back in a moment.
The novel Escape from the Commodore 64 by David Hearn is out now. Growing up in the 80s is a chore for Sarah, who feels misunderstood by her parents and badgered by Reese, her bothersome brother who incessantly prattles on about his treasured computer games. When Reese tells her one of the games tried to pull him inside the computer, she laughs off his fanciful fib. She waggles the joystick to disprove his fairy tale and is pulled into the computer. Now trapped in games she'd never had any interest in playing, how can she possibly beat them? With the help of feisty Nell, another trapped player, can Sarah find her way back home, or is it game over? An evil madman, a hostile planet, bloodthirsty robots, a never-ending throng of karate experts, and relentless digital soldiers will do their best to ensure Sarah never escapes. Available from Amazon and all good online retailers, find out if there's a way out of the beige bread bin of betrayal for Sarah in Escape from the Commodore 64.
Yes, we are back, and we're back, and we are back. Let's get into some albums for January 1988. This might be a short session because, well, it's Christmas, it's January. It's not the biggest time to release.
It's not the top of the release schedule, is it?
Not really, but there's some tunes. There's some albums come out. It's interesting. Let's see. For the first week of the year, now that's what I call Music 10 was still there, propping up the charts, number one.
Yes, it's going to be there a while, hanging around.
Well, this is it. It's done. It's only 1 week. So everyone's had their Christmas presents now. It's time for this to move on. You've done your bit. Everyone bought you before Christmas. Away you go.
Now that's what I call January. He'll be out in February.
Absolutely. The greyness of January has arrived. There's no party tunes.
No. Bleak winter. Winter now.
It would have been in 1988 because the following week, Popped In Sold Out was number one for a week. This is from Wet, Wet, Wet.
Is that the debut album for them?
It is their debut album, yes. This had actually been released in September and was actually kept off the number one spot back then by Michael Jackson's Bad. And it finally got to number one here, probably on the back of the release of Angel Eyes and Sweet Little Mystery.
Probably, yeah.
They were
absolutely
quite popular singles that we have covered. I noticed in 2017 there was a 5 CD 30th anniversary album edition of this.
What edition of that album?
Yeah, what would they fill up 5 CDs with? I mean, unless it were their albums, I don't know. But it just said a 5 CD 30th anniversary album. So it must be a 30th anniversary of this.
It's just sounds of Marty Pello punching things. So he just walks around, punches a ham, punches a cheese, punches 2 melons of different types, Guadalupe, punches a pineapple,
and
spiky
water.
Pineapple.
I just thought it might be just sound of him slowly sort of receding his head into his neck. Just the slow sound of the slow sort of
scrunching inwards, yeah.
Just
and then
sound.
he's also being fed extra long cheese puffs. Do you know, like What's-Its? Extra long What's-Its, but he doesn't actually chew or break them with his teeth. He just glugs them down his long neck. It's kind of freaky to look at.
They just smoothly go down, leaving that sort of cheesy What's-It powder around his lips.
Well, he sneezes that out. So he just pushes them down like a press stud, like, and he goes, and then out of his nose comes the cloud of orange.
Footballers, that football game where you had to push their head down to kick, but you push his head down and he burps out an orange cloud.
When he's playing football, that's how he has to kick the ball. He's running along, he has to press on his own head.
Yeah, I can dig that.
I've noted this is a horrible album full of demons with needles for eyes. Quite sure what I was thinking of when I wrote that, but yeah, that's what I thought.
I thought I read that on the back of the box. But I'm not
the
sure.
Guardian's review was a little bit more scathing than anyone thought.
Absolutely, yeah. Wow. They didn't like that. I didn't go down well at the dinner party that week. Never mind. Knocking it off the number one spot the following week was Turn Back the Clock from Johnny Hates Jazz.
Oh, God. No.
Smug, blandcore horror.
Yeah.
And I've posted the picture of the album cover there. If there's not a smugger picture this episode,
It looks like surprised. The shittest version of Reservoir Dogs I've ever seen.
They're all actually side by side as well. Those people are really small.
Which explains why they have to have really clever microphones. Yeah, it's awful. And it's not good, that, is it? I mean, they are a bit, they're a bit, I don't know, there's something sort of fascistic about the outfits in that. They're sort of slim ties and black
shirt,
suits.
Black ties, black suits. Yeah.
No. And for someone that hates jazz, it just seems irrational, an irrational hatred like that.
Well, if they are Reservoir Dogs, then he would be Mr. Bland, wouldn't he?
Why do I have Mr. Bland? Because you're boring. That's why.
I can't believe you asked that question. You put me to sleep asking it. Shoulders.
That was half an hour ago.
Mr. Bland, Mr. Dull.
Mr. Crap. Why do I have to Mr. Crap? Because you're hanging around with Mr. Dull and Mr. Bland.
You're an idiot.
You're all idiots. You all hate jazz for no reason. That's just stupid.
What have you
really
got against
stupid.
Jazz?
I don't know.
And who's Johnny?
Yeah. It's nothing to do with that band.
No, it's not.
Stupid nonsense anyway.
I did know that Kim Wilde sang backing vocals on the title track on Turn Back the Clock.
She did, and that's because they kidnapped a cat and said, sing or the cat gets pulped. So she sang, and they pulped the cat anyway, the devious jazz-hating crazies.
You can't trust someone that bland. They'll do it without even an expression on their face. As that cat got pulled.
Ironically, well, the first name of their band was Johnny Hates Cats. They changed it because they never thought they'd encounter anyone. They didn't have to watch him pulp a jazz musician again.
True.
That's what, you know what, these things happen in time. Kim Wilde never got over that. She sang loads of songs about it. Not that she released any of them, but she sang loads of songs about it.
Johnny Eats Cat. Maybe that one. That's them. For the final last couple of weeks of the month, where it's a 5-week month, Introducing the Hardline, according to Terence Trent D'Abbey, went back in at number one. This was its second arrival at number one. It was number one in September 87 when it came out.
It's resurfaced.
It has. It came back up to number one, probably on the back of Sign Your Name, which got released in December. So everyone went, "Ooh, I'll have a bit of that Sophisto pop. I have a dinner party coming up with some lower members of the royal family. This will go down a treat."
I'm going to contact all of my friends on my large mobile device. Hello, Terry. Are you coming around for a party? Oh, sorry, Terence now, is it? Okay, Terence. Well, are you coming around for a party? Bring your Sophisto albums with you, will you? Or one of them.
Oh, one of them. I'll put them on my multi-change CD player. Now, who am I going to ring next? I'm going to ring Barry. Let me just check in my Filofax.
I'll check my Filofax. Oh, there he is.
God.
My Rolodex. I've got my Rolodex out. Oh.
Come for a dinner party. We'll talk about nothing because we have nothing of worth.
And then I was chased up a tree by a bear. Oh, the agony of the 80s. Oh.
The pure whimsy of it all.
Oh, the whimsy. Get away, bear. Shoo. Shoo.
Yeah.
Hello, police. There's a bear chasing me up a tree. Oh, it's kept me here for weeks, hours.
What's that? Yes, I have slapped it with my Filofax. It did nothing.
Filofaxes. God, do you remember Filofaxes?
Yeah.
I've never owned a Filofax in my entire life. I'm proud of saying that. Never owned a Filofax. Never will.
Just an address book with a ring binder.
Do you know what it was? It was I admire the genius of somebody. It's the same people who invented razors and razor blades. Here's a razor, a thing that holds a razor blade. The razor blade costs like, £1 million. The stick that it's on, you can have that for free. And it's the same with these Filofaxes. They gave you the leatherette, pleather binder. Pleather binder with the ring. It's a ring binder. It's a bloody ring binder. Yeah. And then, but you open it up and you have to have the special date stamped Filofax insides. Oh, they're 65 quid for those. They're Filofax, but they're special Filofax ones. It's just paper with holes in it, you stupid fools. Lines on. Line paper.
It's not vellum.
No.
It's not papyrus. You're not digging this up out of ancient Egypt.
But you can still get them. You can still buy them on. You go to Amazon. You can still buy Filofaxes. You can still buy the inserts with them. Special rulers. And I kid you not, rulers that have holes punched in them so you can put them in your Filofax. What kind of crazy keeps a ruler with holes in it? I don't know. I don't want to know. I don't know those people. I was never a Sophisto in the 80s.
Is it a Swiss ruler?
I knew people who had Filofaxes. I did know a few people who had them. I wasn't ever sophisticated enough to really be acknowledged by them, but I knew them. We were not
in any way, shape or form sophisticated.
No, absolutely not. I think my mum might have had one because she was kind of knocking about with the hoi polloi of whatever businessy people and hotel-y people at one point. So because she had a mobile phone pretty early as well, I remember she had this Vodafone thing, so she was kind of in that sort of set. But we all spied her with derision, and we mocked her and laughed at her and threw things at her and everything, and spat in her Filofax. She doesn't know any of that. She does now, though.
Yeah, she's an avid listener.
She listens to this podcast.
She's listening outside your door right now.
Yeah. Graham? No, Are you talking about my Filofax? I wonder what those spit marks were. God damn it.
Yeah, there was spit.
Yeah, we didn't have to wonder about it. It was just spit. Yeah, we didn't like it.
There we go.
We don't like it. We don't like your Filofax.
No. Anyway, Filofaxes. So, right, that's your album. That's your number one. It's what came out on the 3rd of January. There was not much. Number 69, Come Into My Life by Joyce Sims. We talked about the single, I think, last week.
We did.
And now the album's here, called the same thing. I know nothing of this beyond vague recollection of the single, as I said last week. She did, fair play. She wrote all the songs on the album, bar one cover, which was Love Makes a Woman, which was originally by Barbara Acklin.
No, I know not of this artist.
I know nothing.
And like you, I think I've heard samples of this artist in other house tracks, but I'm afraid I'm not going to rush off and try and find the latest Joyce Sims album. No disrespect to you, Joyce, but I suspect you own a Filofax, and that's going to keep us separated forever. So,
absolutely. I'm trying to look at you, maybe spit in it.
I don't ever want to be a date in your Filofax. So.
No, true. Not giving you my number to put in a ring binder.
I met Graham today, and he told me to get lost and take my Filofax and stick it up my arse. How unpleasant. How rude. I must invite him to more parties.
I'll write a song about him. Come into my life.
Stick your Filofax up your bottom, said Graham.
It's a winner. It's a real winner.
It's going to be a hit if you could drop all that part about Filofaxes. You're in with it.
And Graham, because it's quite like
who is he and why?
Slightly libelous.
Yes.
10th of January, because that was the only album that came out the 3rd of January. In at number 63 was Cher with Cher.
Yeah,
the album.
That's fair. That's fair for Cher.
Fair for Cher.
Fair share.
She doesn't like to share, though, Cher.
No.
She's very greedy. She eats all the crisps on her own, all the chocolate. There's no sharing with Cher.
No, there isn't. That is her name. Is a total misnomer. It's not right.
It's an insult. It's an insult to those that, like, you go to the cinema with her and she keeps everything to herself. There's no handing out of the jelly babies.
One of her powerful skills is that she can actually put her lips around the entire seal, her lips around a Pringles tube, and just the Pringles will lower into her mouth. She doesn't even chew, just and that's it. An entire tube of Pringles is done.
There's already a running theme in this episode, in these albums, of you and pop stars gorging on crisps in one long suck.
Yes. Well, it's coincidence that two people who can do that happen to be in the album chart that says, I don't make the rules. I'm just an observer of what happens. I'm the observer of these things. It's just a skill that I know that Cher has.
Yeah, she's very good with it. Anyway, the writing credits on this album, I've noted, they're like an 80s who's who of classic rock writers.
Oh my gosh.
Desmond Child, Michael Bolton, Mark Mangold, John Bon Jovi, Richie Sambora, Diane Warren, John Lynn, Mark Goldenberg.
Wow.
And between them, it's just you look, especially Desmond Child for one thing. It's just ridiculous the amount of songs he's written.
Crazy.
But Bolton, Diane Warren, they've just written so many. So she's just surrounding herself. And there are also on the wiki. I was looking at this earlier. There are 99 people listed as having worked on this album in one way or another.
Goodness me, what were they all doing?
I don't know. I mean, that's crazy. 99. Is that usual for a big album to have 99 people? I thought you'd have an engineer, someone to set up some of the equipment.
That's not normal.
There's just hundreds. There's loads of musicians, loads of engineers, loads of mixers. Crazy. This was a big album. Very well produced, obviously.
Well, a lot of people have involved. I mean, are they musicians on it? Bobby Maracas is one of them. And ironically, he plays the clarinet, so I don't know why he would be there.
Jimmy Castanets, such a great bass player.
You said Jimmy Castanets.
Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy, get the bass out.
Bobby,
okay. No one ever asked me to play the castanets, do they, ever?
No, I'm a good cause. You can't play
them. That's my name. You can't play them. It's just your name, you stupid fool.
Absolutely.
Go and join the other 98 people in the line and get in that line.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. There's also a track on this called Perfection that features Darlene Tyler and Bonnie Tyler. I might have written her name wrong.
The Tylers.
The Tylers. I think I might have got Darlene Tyler wrong there. I can only assume that song was gravelly, so I listened to it. Did you listen to it? I put
Very gravelly.
You've got to listen to it because the chorus is just a Desmond Child chorus because he wrote it.
Yeah, I did listen to it. Yeah, it's that kind of horrible kind of guitar sound. Yeah, no, yeah, it's totally Desmond Child. No, he's the same guy that produced half of that Shocker album when it comes out. And
he's done so many songs.
We will have the power.
No. Horace Pinker says no. Bloody Horace Pinker.
Just remember that album's also got Dangerous Toys on it.
I know. I'm not doing it. I'm not going there.
And remember, it's got that different Breed track on it as well. He sees himself apart from you and I. Is he from down below or is he from the sky?
I remember that Dangerous Toys album that you bought. It was so thin.
I bought that on the strength of that track.
It was a flexi disc in nothing but name, in all but name. Sorry,
it's because of the track on the track on the Shocker album was Demon Bell by them, which is stupid and awful. So I bought the album as you do, and it was stupid and awful. No shot there.
Exactly. Oh dear. Number 93, Flashdance 1988 version was released. The original soundtrack. I don't know. It's just a reissue of the 1983 soundtrack. I have no idea why it was re-released.
It must be something to do with CD or something.
It could very well be, or it'd been on TV or something.
Yeah, it was on TV around that time. I won't hear anything bad about that album. That album is
no,
ace.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's bad. I just don't know why it was re-released, but it was pushed.
It must be CD, but what an amazing album that is. It's worth revisiting today. It's so good.
Yeah, good
so
old Giorgio Moroder. Yes,
he is. He's the best Moroder there is.
Yeah, and it's also got Maniac on it.
I always thought that's a kind of a slight misspelling of Mordor. Wouldn't it be different in Lord of the Rings if they went to visit
Giorgio
Moroder? Yeah, Giorgio Moroder. It is the evil swelling In Marauder. Ding, 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 like a synth track kicks in. It's too cool.
It would be good. Yeah, Marauder. Yeah, okay. What else has come out? Number 100 was Make It Last Forever by Keith Sweat.
Yes.
As he put, please don't, Keith.
No, don't.
But
Ugh.
this album was massive. It went triple platinum in the US, selling more than 3 million copies.
What is it?
I don't know. People like the sweat.
I'm suspecting it's probably got is it country and western or something like that? Or
No, it's R&B.
R&B, yeah, there you go, that's why.
Yeah, it was a big hit in the States. I've never heard of it, never seen it. We went, the UK wasn't a big R&B stomping ground,
not
really,
at all.
was it?
His album after that was Bring Me Some Deodorant, which was an unusual title, but it was actually what he really wanted. So.
His second one was Ball or Roll On. Ball or...
and aerosol.
Yeah.
Neither. He wanted for his armpits, to quote a famous joke on BBC TV. Anyway,
17th of January, straight in at number 1, Turn Back the Clock by Johnny Hates Jazz.
How did he get to number 1 straight away? I don't know. I didn't know there was that many Johnny Hates Jazz fans out there.
Quiet month.
Yeah, I guess, out of the 6 albums that were sold that week, he sold 3.
yeah, absolutely.
Or 4.
Yeah, by default, Johnny Bates Cat went straight in at number 1. Bah. That's what I say. Bah.
Bah.
Why does he hate jazz, though? That's the
I don't want to know. I think we know why, because he's a murderous, cat-killing crazy, and that's just a misnomer for his deeds. Allegedly.
Down at the other end of the chart was number 95, The Lion and the Cobra by Sinead O'Connor, her debut album. Had Mandinka on it, probably what most people would probably recognise. Had I thought of that?
Not me.
Do you not know Mandinka?
No,
I bet you'd know it if you heard it.
Probably.
However, I Want Your Hands on Me was featured in the 1988 horror film A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, using a prominent character's death sequence as well as the film's end credits.
Makes sense.
There you go. I've also posted a couple of pictures there. These are on the Wikipedia of the UK cover art versus the American cover art.
Slight difference there, isn't there?
Yeah. Thought that the Americans couldn't handle the feisty first one.
How silly is that? I mean,
They wanted to give a more softer image.
Yeah, I mean, I never got what all the fuss was about with Sinead O'Connor. I mean, sure, she's done well for an animated egg, but her most popular song was written by Prince. Still, Egg.
Well, she did write all her own tracks, though, I think, for that first album.
Yeah, I never heard of any of them. I only care about the ones I've heard about.
Yeah, true. Mandinka is actually a good track, but I didn't know anything else of it.
I think she was quite a talented artist, given...
And a beautiful voice. I'll give her that.
Yeah.
Incredibly good voice. But yeah, she was a law unto herself. 24th of January at number 3. This is high for them, but I can see why. If I Should Fall From Grace with God by the Pogues.
Ooh.
Third studio album and their highest chart placement ever. Clearly on the back of Fairy Tale of New York, which had just come out that Christmas, I think. Interestingly, prior to the release of this album in 1986, the Pogues record label Stiff Records had gone into administration, as the label still owned the rights to all the Pogues recordings. The group were unable to record any new material until they were released from their contract with Stiff Records. So during 1986, so they didn't actually do anything between then and now. They basically they occupied themselves by guesting on a cover version of the Irish Rover with the Dubliners, which
Famously.
I'm aware of. And they also took part in Alex Cox's comedy action film Straight to Hell, shot in southern Spain, and also starring the Clash's frontman Joe Strummer.
I didn't know any of that.
No, there you go.
Now, here's a little known fact about Shane MacGowan. If he places a single marble in his mouth and then gargles with whiskey, he can speak perfect royal-sounding English.
Wow.
However, if he replaces that marble with a small cube of cheese or a baby bell, he can only shout the Icelandic word akurga, which means cucumber. It's one of those things.
I do like these sections where I learn lots of interesting facts.
You could win a pub quiz with that. Obscure pub quiz, I'll grant you, but a pub quiz, especially in Iceland.
Yeah. Question number 7. If Shane MacGowan was to take a baby bell into his mouth, what vegetable would he shout out in Icelandic? I can't see that question. I can't see that question coming up.
Is it leek? No, I'm sorry, you're wrong.
Oh, you're wrong. Close. So close.
You aren't going for gold. You're wrong. Oh.
Is it a dusty bin? You're right.
You're right. But not how you think.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see that happening. But stranger things have happened in this world. Number 31, Dusty, The Silver Collection by Roger Moore. No. By Dusty Springfield.
Bloody should be by Roger Moore, yeah. Dusty Springfield.
Hello.
Dusty Springfield that sang Puppet on a String? Is that Dusty Springfield?
Yeah,
or is that
probably.
somebody else?
I tried to have a look for what this was. It's a compilation of 60s and 70s hits by the looks of it. I didn't really know her. It's not, I mean, I kind of recognise the name and stuff, and that she was a pop icon of the 60s in Britain, but...
Yeah, same. It's totally out of my wheelhouse. I mean, Rusty Springbucket, I remember nothing of her before the first time of the passing of the moon biscuit. And after that, I remember everything.
Well, if you do pass a moon biscuit, it's going to leave an egg-shaped hole.
And a skid mark, the likes of which will never be seen before or since.
And no amount of rubbing, Lady Macbeth style, will get rid of it.
They say it's the only thing that can be seen from space. The only skid marks that can be seen from space.
Absolutely. Lewis Hamilton has spent his entire career wanting to replicate it.
It's exactly how they found the Higgs boson. That's how they found it. That's where they found it.
That's what they've built it for. The Large Hadron Collider.
Yeah. There's colliding particles of turd together to create that.
We've done it. Look at that.
We've successfully created a moon biscuit.
Not even very, very multi-action powder will get rid of it.
Is that Lewis Hamilton?
Yes.
We've done it, Lewis.
We've done it.
Great. I don't have to keep racing these cars around and trying to do it myself. All right, Lewis, if that's what you were doing. All right. See you later, mate. Bye.
Bye. We're just going to sit here and enjoy our moon biscuit.
I really want a moon biscuit now.
Yeah, everyone does. Number 40, House Sound of Chicago, Volume 3 by various artists. I didn't know any of that. I put a list there to the discography, but...
Yeah, I looked at that. I'm like, never heard of any of them. Or if I had, I've already heard them, but no, I wouldn't know who they were, because this is starting to get to that time when house DJs played loads of tracks, but nobody ever knew who they were. And then the only time you'd come across them was on a compilation album. You go, oh, it's by Boggett and Frago. Oh, that's great.
It's called Acid Up Your Jacksy or something.
Yeah, it's exactly that what it was. So many compilation albums, so many artists getting recognition for things once and once only.
And once only. Finally, in at number 92 was Out of the Blue by Debbie Gibson.
Crazy.
Another one, debut album, sold more than 3 million again in the US, just like Keith Sweat, and 5 million worldwide. She wrote all the songs on the album, which is pretty impressive. Cool. She just turned 17 at its release.
It's amazing what threatening a teddy bear with fire will do for coercive creation, isn't it?
She did do well. Someone was there, teddy bear in one hand, lighter in the other, forcing her to write songs.
You got 13 songs to go there, Gibson. On you go. Otherwise, teddy bear's going to lose an ear.
The painful way.
Don't hurt Teddy. Oh, we won't hurt him. We're going to burn him to death. That's painful death. That's not burn. That's not. No, that's awful.
Too late. Look into his button eyes. They've seen things.
To be fair, it does kind of give you an idea of the song titles. You know, Don't Burn My Teddy. Please die. Teddy Don't Die. Teddy Be Gone. Murderous Bastards, Leave Him Alone. All those songs she wrote that were,
absolutely
classic hits. All of them.
The clues were really there for all to see.
Right there in your face.
Absolutely.
In your face.
Poirot with his twirly moustache to work that one out.
No, Melted Button Eyes was a massive number one in Uganda, I think, and a few other places.
Absolutely. It was there for 4 weeks.
4 long, painful, teddy bear threatening weeks.
Yes. Number 31st of January, in at number 11 was Skyscraper by David Lee Roth. It's got Just Like Paradise on it, about all I know. But reading about it seems he managed to piss off both Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan with this album. That's some going. Because both of them quit.
They did, but it all depends on who where you read and what you read about it. It was the second album from the sort of the supergroup, wasn't it, of David Lee Roth Band. So, you've got Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan, and I forget the drummer as well, but they're all really crazy talented people anyway. And Eat 'Em and Smile, which was the first album, was always going to be a tough act to follow. Different producer for this album. They got kind of a raw sound, famous for its kind of raw sound on the first album. So this one was a lot more sort of heavy synthesized, a lot more production, very produced. And that was kind of what Van Halen were criticised for as well during some of their albums. So I think that's the reason why it wasn't as well received as perhaps it could have been. Now, that I read that wasn't the reason why Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan and they went their separate ways. Steve Vai was kind of the producer and wrote most of these tracks with David Lee Roth on this album. The problem, I think, was that Steve Vai described it as there's only so much room for David Lee Roth's ego in a studio environment. There's only so much of that you can take. Because he's a big character and he's full of beans. And I guess that had its part to play.
He's full of beans.
He's so full of, he won't stop farting. He stinks. Get him out of the studio. I mean, Steve Vai's got alien-esque hands anyway.
Well, we know
She's got alien-esque hands.
He's got three knuckles.
He has got really long fingers, famously long fingers. It's crazy anyway. But David Lee Roth is a really talented guy, I think, in his own kind of frontman kind of way. And he's not the greatest vocalist by any admit. I don't think he would say that, but he has got charisma and he does carry that kind of thing across. And just like Paradise is an amazingly good song, and the solo in it's ace. I think the production is just a little bit, overproduced maybe. But I imagine trying to control David Lee Roth is like trying to control a firework in terms of creative direction. I personally think that David Lee Roth and Steve Vai are an amazing double act when they were in that band. I think they're brilliant. I think it's the most interesting you'll ever hear Steve Vai, and the most fun he's ever had when he's playing in a band, because he's in a band before that as well, and I don't think he ever really was again. But it seems to me like he's having the most fun he ever had, even though parts of it, some of the solos are kind of cut off on the album anyway. I like it better than Eat 'Em and Smile, although that does have some great tracks on it like Yankee Rose and stuff. But just like Paradise is one of my favourite rock songs of all time. I think it's ace. So I guess I'm biased a little bit, but
no, you are. You like what you like.
It's good. All right. I like David Lee Roth, but I really like Steve Vai when he's in that band doing that stuff, because it reminds me when he's in Crossroads and he just comes across as a really interesting, really innovative, crazy talented virtuoso guitar player. I really like that about him. When his self-styled albums come out later, Passion and Warfare and things like that, I just don't think he's ever quite the same guy as he was in Skyscraper and in Eat 'Em and Smile. I just don't think it's the same Steve Vai. There's an energy and a craziness and youthful effervescence about those performances that I think just shout and scream out of his guitar playing, and I find that really intoxicating. But I guess that's just me. So, I just think it's maybe something he never quite captured again, I think.
Fair enough. I'm not going to argue. I don't know. I don't know enough of his catalogue to comment with any kind of authority.
Yes.
Number 54, Destiny's Songs by Courtney Pine. This would be hated by Johnny because this is a jazz album.
Oh, crikey. I've never heard of Courtney Pine.
No, I had a look, tried to have a listen, but it's so far out my comfort zone to comment on it. Might as well be a moon biscuit.
Maybe it is a moon biscuit.
So I don't know. I can say nothing about this album apart from it came in at number 54 on the 31st of January. However, at number 58, we have Shove It by Cross. So this is the debut album from the band The Cross, who is led by Roger Taylor of Queen, of course, the drummer in Queen. But in this, he played rhythm guitar and sang. And so I found this song on YouTube and put a link to it. Oh, good Lord. Oh, good Lord.
How we wish you hadn't.
I was completely unaware of this, and I wish I'd stayed unaware. This song is terrible. The opening of the video is really creepy. The sound keeps cutting out. It just keeps focusing on this girl dancing really lecherously. It's horrible.
It's weird.
Roger Taylor wears far too much pale denim.
He really does.
He's all in pale denim. He's put proper denim to the max. The song's so bad. The album actually also features Freddie Mercury, Brian May, and John Deacon. So it's Queen.
Yeah,
it's Queen.
We've seen that a few times, haven't we? Where I'm going to release a solo album. Do you mind helping me out? Well, don't that make it a Queen album? Nah, we're in a different order.
Yeah, absolutely. This failed to chart in the US at all. At all.
Surprised.
I'm not surprised. This was an awful song. The chorus, oh my Lord. Did you listen to the song?
Yeah, I did. I thought my instinctive reaction was, Christ, this is shit. I thought if the Art of Noise had sex with Brian May and he gave birth to a leathery husk-like egg, and out of that egg spawned a guitar that could only be played by a leather-palmed bear, that would be the resulting sound. Yeah, that would be the resulting sound of that track. That's what it would be. That's how it came about.
Yeah. It's because it's basically just Roger Taylor shouting "shove it" about we want like cars, we like girls, we like awful, this, and if you tell us not to, shove it. It's like, oh my God.
It had the Art of Noisy style background sounds, and it's just horrible. It really was
horrible.
It's never mentioned very often, is it that?
No, we will put that link to that in the show notes because we feel that it must be shared with you.
It must be shared, so you too can shove it if you want to.
Yeah, write your complaints to Roger Taylor, care of Queen. Finally, the last album of the month, number 89, was Count Your Blessings by Anne Williamson.
Oh,
don't know.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's a religious album featuring Morning Has Broken, All Things Bright and Beautiful, and other tracks like that.
Classic tracks like Marin!
I cast you out, unclean spirit. Yeah, I don't know anything about that album. I'm never going to know anything. You can't watch it on YouTube,
a second album after that was Songs in the Key of Exorcism. And that had some classics on that. Dimmy, Why Dimmy was the favourite of mine on there.
How far can you take a crucifix was the hit.
Would you pay an altar boy, father? And all the whole... There's a whole gamut of songs that came out of that exorcism.
There really is.
The less we say about that, the better. I think it's
the better. Right, there we go. I told you there wasn't much in the way of albums. There's a few interesting ones in that lot. So that's it. So we're going to go away, take a quick break. You can listen to some of the stuff. We will be back after that. And we've got, was it five more games to get through? We did. Come back. And the next part is brought to you by the letter T. So we'll see you in a bit.
Good Lord, Adrian, what is that you're holding?
This, Graham, is juices for your junk. That's what this is. In this hot weather, it's basically saved me over the last couple of days from chafage, from all kinds of horrible things. This is crop preserver from Manscaped. Literally ball deodorant.
Wow, okay. That's not something I would have thought of, but tell me more. I'm intrigued.
Well, quick squirt of this and a quick rub on the old lads downstairs. And I found that in this, Outback style heat that we've just suffered over the last couple of days, I was less, shall we say, sweaty. There was less rubbing. There was less chafage. It was all very nice. I could spread with impunity. My partner didn't particularly like me spreading with impunity across the sofa, but hey-ho, them's the breaks. You live and learn. So a bit of manscaping, a bit of rubbing of the old crop preserver led me to a much more pleasant experience. Not that these last couple of days with this heat has been pleasant, but it's certainly been more pleasant than what it would have been down below.
Do you have to do your own, or would you do mine? I'll do yours if it's, we're all friends.
We are all friends.
I'm not ready for that.
But I think there's only so far friendship goes. I'll shake your hand and I'll have some crop preserver on it. You can take that and use it on yourself. That's my final offer. And if you like offers, then if you go to manscaped.com and you use the code ZAPPED20 at manscaped.com, you will get 20% off with free shipping. So yes, get 20% off and free shipping with the code ZAPPED20 at manscaped.com. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. And we are back for the final part of this episode. We've got 5 games to get through. They're all brought to you by the letter T, interestingly enough.
It's just the way it rolled.
It did, yeah. T to the max. So let's get on with this. We've got a classic to start off with. Tetris. Graham, tell us about Tetris.
So this is brought to the Commodore 64 by Andromeda Software. The graphics were by Stephen Thompson. The title screen's by Stephen Thompson. That's Sit. Yeah. It's you and me. The musician here, Wally Beban, also known as Yaeger. Okay. Anyway, Tetris is obviously, well, maybe not obviously at the time, it's a puzzle video game created by Soviet software engineer Alexei, is that Pajitnov or Pajitnov?
Yeah. Pajitnov.
Back in 1984. In the latter part of the 80s, there was something of a license scramble for this. The end result was poor Alexei was pretty much duped out of the licensing rights. He later got them back and got kind of stitched up by Andromeda Software and Microsoft, who sold the rights to something. So in June 1986, Robert Stein, an international software salesman for the London-based firm Andromeda Software, saw the game's commercial potential during a visit to Hungary. Now, at this time, Alexei's senior supervisor was somebody that had more experience in the world than Alexei's. Remember, this is behind the Iron Curtain at the time. So this is Russia circa 1983-84, very much behind the Iron Curtain. And so Alexei went to his senior, I forget his name, it's something that I forget begins with B, but I can't remember it and I didn't write it down. But he goes to his supervisor and said, is there anything I can do with this? The supervisor leaked this game out to the world, essentially, really. And it sort of spread its way across the various continents. Anyway, it ended up at this, somehow it ended up in front of this Robert Stein on a commercial sort of business trip when he was in Hungary. He acquired the rights to this, believe it or not, by duping them out of Alexei, by getting him to sign and have a fax, which was obviously faxed to him. Alexei didn't know that the faxes at the time were legally binding documents. And so he was duped at this particular point out of the rights for Tetris. And then the Andromeda Software then sold the European rights for £3,000 and a great big whopping part of the percentage of royalties to Microsoft and some others, and the company in the US, who then could go on and produce variations of the game Tetris. So many variants of the game appeared, often across different computers, one of those, of course, being the Commodore 64. Meanwhile, poor Alexei, while he sat having created one of the best-selling game franchises of all time, was not getting much in the way of recompense until 1996, when the rights did finally revert back to him. Bit nasty in it, that.
Very.
It also made me laugh, by the way, that the co-founder of Mastertronic, Martin Alpler, said at the time, allegedly, that no Soviet product will ever work in the Western world when he was demonstrated Tetris. I wonder how those words tasted for the 202 million copies were sold. Yeah. I imagine it tasted a little bit like stupid.
Pure moon biscuit.
It's what moon biscuit tastes like. 202 million copies sold on something you went, no time. Anyway.
Just turn your head to the left.
So Tetris is primarily composed of a field of play in which pieces of different geometric forms called tetrominoes, descend from the top of a field. During this descent, the player can move the pieces laterally, except left and right to you and me, and rotate them until they touch the bottom of the field or land on the piece that has been placed before it. The player can neither slow down the falling pieces nor stop them in this variant, but can accelerate them in most versions. The objective of the game is to use the pieces to create as many horizontal lines of blocks as possible. When a line is completed, it disappears, and the blocks placed above fall one rank down. Completing lines grants points, and accumulating a certain number of points or lines cleared moves the player up a level, which increases the number of points granted per completed line. And in most versions, the speed of the falling pieces gradually increases as each level goes up, leaving the player with less time to think about the placement. The player can clear multiple lines at once, which can earn bonus points in some versions. I don't think it does in the C64 version, though. And it's possible to complete up to 4 lines simultaneously with the use of the long sort of tetromino. This move is called a Tetris and is the basis of the game's title. If the player cannot make the blocks disappear quickly enough, the field will start to fill, and when the pieces reach the top of the field and prevent the arrival of additional pieces, the game ends. At the end of each game, the player receives a score based on the number of lines they have completed. The game never ends with the player's victory. The player can only complete as many lines as possible before an inevitable loss. So that's Tetris. That's how it came to be. And it's a game from a long time ago, but a very clever game. And of course, it's gone on later to be a crazy, crazy popular thing. I think it must have sold 1 billion Nintendo devices at some point. Mm-hmm. All prior to poor Alexei getting his rights back, which is unbelievable, really, anyway. C64 version, then, is really strangely themed. And now, I have to say, I think this looks... The graphics on this, I think they look brilliant. The actual outer graphics, the sort of the strange-looking kind of statuesque, kind of chromium-looking objects, all really beautifully drawn by the legendary Sit. They're really, really nice. They've got a really nice chrome effect. The typeface is glorious at the top with Tetris. It's glorious. In fact, so glorious that it actually made it as an actual typeface on the C64 and made it into many, many demos, one of which I've even used in a demo. So it's a beautiful typeface created for that kind of tubular chromium. Really nice. Now, it's not really linked to Tetris in any way that I could make sense of any of that.
No, it's not.
No, so it's just prettying around the edges. It's just a different kind of background, but at least it's kind of tastefully done. It's kind of nice. It adds a nice sort of original tonality to proceedings because the game of Tetris itself is the game of Tetris. The main Tetris game is obviously played in the kind of column that you would expect it to be in. That lives down the middle of the screen, or is it in the middle and slightly offset to the left, I think, but either way, it's center of the screen, really. And you control the tetrominoes with your joystick. Now, I found them in the C64 version, they're a bit flickery.
Yes.
Where I expected smooth scrolling. Now, I hadn't played this a lot on the C64, I have to tell you, because it's just, it was never a game that really caught my attention back then. It's crazy. It obviously, later down the line, everyone seems to knew about it. But back then, it was just a little bit of an anomaly. And I'd heard of it, but it was never anything that really caught my attention. Even later down on Nintendo devices, I was never that struck on it. But anyway, so this C64 version, the graphics around the side are all aside. The actual game graphics, the sprites of the tetrominoes, they're kind of flickery and they don't smooth scroll like you'd expect. And they kind of disappear and reappear, really, when you're kind of moving them around. You control the rotation with the fire button and you press down to accelerate the piece, or in my instance, make it vanish and reappear towards the bottom. It was kind of a bit off-putting, really. Mm-hmm. And I think because I'm so used to playing Tetris versions that don't do those things, that this flickery version kind of made me think, ooh. So it's Tetris in that way. And, you play it for high scores. I think, is it the greatest version of Tetris itself? No, not by a long stretch. But it is Tetris and it has that kind of addictability, I suppose, if you like it. I just think it's a bit flickery. Now, the music does deserve a very special mention for this because there's a stunning, hypnotic 25-minute plus Wally Beban score for this game, and it is something very special. It uses very subtle sampling. It's 4-channel. It uses very subtle sampling to create a really hypnotic trance-style effect that kind of goes with the game in a way that you would never expect it to. It almost feels almost Egyptian sounding. Now, it's no accident that Wally Beban did the scores for both Darkside and Total Eclipse, the Freescape games that come after Driller, because you can almost hear the tonality of Total Eclipse when you're playing this. It's got that It's got that hypnotic drum beat. It's got this really nice thematic. I think the soundtrack for this is the real winner. And the graphics around the edges, beautiful. The game itself, well, it's an okay version of Tetris, but everything else around this is pretty cool. Now, it's full price, I think, at $8.95. So that's quite a lot for a Tetris game, but back then, maybe it wasn't. I suppose more upsetting really is that $8.95 of that never went anywhere near the guy that created that wonderful game. I think that's perhaps the greatest shame of all of this, is that the guy that created this game never got any of the rights, any of the rewards or anything until much later after this. So I think that's perhaps the great tragedy of this Tetris version. But taking that aside, there's an amazing soundtrack for this, and those sick graphics really are something to behold on a 64, because they really do look kind of metal and chrome. So that sets it apart in kind of good ways. But the main game, well, it's just kind of a version of Tetris and not a great one for me, but it's Tetris. So yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, what do you say about Tetris? If you talk about this version, it's okay. It's not a brilliant version, but even a half playable version of Tetris is something that's going to sink its hooks into you, because it's just by its very nature is just, and whether that's just me, and I'll come to that in a little bit. But for me, Tetris is one of those pure design. You can't do anything more to it. There's loads been done. There's loads people tried to do more to it, but the single player Tetris version is just perfect. It's just one of the most perfect games ever made. And of games that come from that, there's still versions of it being made and still twists on it and take. So it's brilliant. This one, it is a bit flickery, and weirdly as well, it takes a little while, because pushing down immediately transports your block to the bottom, which is odd sort of thing. Normally they'd sort of speed up if you're in the wrong. If you're going into the wrong space, you'll crap, stop moving it and adjust it. In this, it's like, you better know. You kind of get around that after a little bit of play. You kind of read the screen a bit better, but it's tricky at the start. Yeah, it is what it is. Also, I found that when the game starts to speed up, when you get quite far into it, the inability to spin and move your block, you can't do both at the same time, get quite frustrating, and it makes it harder than it needs to be. And I think that's where that flickeriness really starts to sort of become a bit of a hindrance to those higher level of play when you get quite far into it. Visually, it's nice enough. There's two things to this game, isn't there? There's the Tetris in the middle, and then the outside bit. So whatever they are, the background image is great. It's brilliant. It's very arty, and I think what it is just they've gone, well, we've fit Tetris in 20K.
Yeah.
What do we do? Oh, let's put a really cool picture and a massive piece of music. Okay, because we'll just fill up the thingy, and it's a great piece of music. 25 minutes. Wally Bevan. Sorry, it burbles away as you find yourself playing time and time again. It's great. It's a great piece of music, and it does lend to that hypnotic nature of the game, where you just start to get into that Tetris zone, and that music really fits quite well. I really do like it. I love Tetris, in fact, but I do find it hard to go back to. There's a reason for this, and in the I don't know if you know this about me. In the late 90s, I had a Game Boy. I bought a Game Boy, and I had Pokemon Red and Tetris. The two games I bought. I played Pokemon for about 10 minutes. Nah, it wasn't for me. I played Tetris though for literally hundreds of hours. I mastered that version on the Game Boy. I could beat game mode B, I think it was, at the highest levels, the level 9, speed 6, whatever it was, or level 5, speed 9, where it starts off with a load of blocks already on there, and it's moving up down, and you have to sort of quick. I could do it. I could get it. I could get the space shuttle blasting off, the rocket blasting off, the mice dancing. I was just a savant. That was one of those games, something where I played so much. I was like perfect at it. Problem was, and this is a recognized thing with it, I started to get Tetris dreams. So I was seeing blocks in real life. I was just seeing things falling. I was seeing them in my dream stuff. It's really weird. I was so hooked that I had to stop. I sold my Game Boy because I had to get rid of it. I literally had to sell it to actually break this cold because I just couldn't stop playing it. I was so addicted to this game through the years of about, I think I got it about 98 it was. And I bought it just a cheap secondhand Game Boy. And I must have been for a few years. And I just couldn't stop playing it. So it's hard for me to go back to Tetris because as soon as I start playing it, it's not hard for me just to sort of I just start seeing it again and doing it. So it's just weird. It's one of those. I love it. I think it's an amazing game. But I did have a period where I was severely addicted to this game to the point where I was like just doing it all hours of the day. I was just playing Tetris.
Wow, crazy.
I know. And even just going back to it now, it's like you still feel that lore. It's an addiction. It's a strange thing.
Into Tetris Anonymous.
Yeah, I should do. Yeah. I've not played Tetris now for 48 days. They give you a thing as your badges is a block. Square one and L1, the cross.
It's like torture.
Yeah, amazing concept. This just bad for my brain. We all have addictions to certain things. We can all get into certain things at certain points. It's why I've never gone and played. And people ask me, you like video games? You play World of Warcraft and things like that. I go, no, because I think that'd be dangerous. Because I think I just get very highly addicted to that kind of rote repetition, online stuff, and I'd be very bad.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
I stay away from things like that because I think I could fall into those kind of pits and holes and things, and I don't want to. Tetris was kind of an eye opener in that respect for me because it's so simple and so quick. Because you play a game and you can be over in a few minutes and it's just quick start. And that Game Boy, the Game Boy version, you just had the Game Boy with you. You just took it with you, so it was on the bus, wherever. It was it was crazy. This is an okay version of it. It's not brilliant. It's not as good as the Game Boy version, which I know inside out, back to front. But yeah, it's great, helped by a great piece of music. I love Tetris. It deserves entirely that 94%, if not higher, in my opinion. But probably not this version. So yeah, I think 94% may be a bit too high for this version. But the underlying concept certainly deserves higher than that. But there you go. Tetris. I have to be wary of it.
Hey, I didn't know that, but now I do.
You do.
That explains a great deal, actually, because I've noticed that when I was building a wall in my garden that time, putting the bricks down, you sat to break out in a sweat and then threw a sausage at me from the barbecue and it was on fire. Why did you do that?
That's because you were bent over in those tight shorts. they were oh so tight. I could see the whole of the moon biscuit. as sung by the Water Boys. And I keep my
moon biscuit neatly trimmed.
Absolutely, you do. As sung by the Water Boys. You saw the whole of the moon biscuit.
Yes, well, thankfully the sausage never landed in our moon biscuit. It
was a bad shot.
Would have been painfully a burning sensation in the wrong ways.
I know, and just like if you get a full line of Tetris, would have quickly disappeared.
It would, yeah. They wouldn't have leveled up. It'd have been a Tetris, and that'd have been me yelling, screaming for the moon biscuit. So,
indeed, there we go. That's Tetris. It's Tetris. What do you say? Let's move on. Let's move on to the next one. So our next one, this is a disc-only game. This is £15. It got 83% somehow. This is Thunderchopper. Now, there's a
stupid
title.
Name. Can I just say from the get-go, stupid name for a game. Thank you very much. Thank you.
But can I just say this is not a game about Hulk Hogan's character in Rocky 3 and what he keeps down his pants.
Thunderlips is one game, yeah.
Thunderlips is Thunderchopper. Oh no, this is another hardcore helicopter flight sim, cut from the same mold as things like Gunship, Super Huey, things of that type. You remember them, don't you? You remember them.
Unfortunately.
Anyway, in this, you get to pilot the Hughes 530 MG Defender. I'm guessing that's a helicopter. Some kind of I don't know what type of helicopter it is. It's some kind of helicopter. One of those. I think it's one of those with the rounded front and the whatever.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But it's some kind of helicopter. It's loaded to the gills with rockets and other armaments and stuff to blow other helicopters away with, and anything on the floor and things like that, and you can fly it, whatever. I couldn't find any credits for this. It simply comes from Action Soft. Once the game loads, which takes a while, there's a lot of long loading in this episode. You're presented with a fairly bland title screen with several options. It reminded me of another flight simulator that had a really similar title screen that was just loaded text and options. I can't remember what it was. I don't know if it was Ace. I don't know if it was Ace.
Might have been.
Looked very similar. But anyway, that seems to be the de rigueur. Oh, and there's the loading screen as well, which is you kind of get the impression of the helicopter. It's got the word Thunderchopper across the bottom, but for some reason they felt the need to put the T at a jaunty angle.
I know, isn't it? It's just wrong.
I didn't quite understand. Put the T at a jaunty angle. Okay, if you say so. All right, so it's loaded. You've got several options. These options are demonstration, where you can watch a demo of the game and the things the helicopter can do. Flight training, where you've got to fly around, follow a black line, and land and take off. Rescue alert, where you've got to rescue some people. Combat alert, where you've got to shoot some people and buildings and things. Armed escort, where you've got to protect things from being destroyed. And finally, rescue at sea, where you've got to rescue people at sea and land on a ship, I think. I didn't play that one, so I don't know. There are also 3 levels of difficulty with pilot, instructor, and commander. I presume that's offering easy, medium, and hard, but that's what they are. I couldn't find a manual for this, so I'm just checking. All I could find was an instruction sheet of what keys did what. Once you've chosen a mission and a difficulty and waited for more loading, you're giving a briefing screen telling you what the mission entails. So for the flight training, it's just follow the black lines, land and thingy when it tells you to do it, and just get round, do the stuff. In the combat alert, he goes, right, you got to blow up some stuff to the north, some stuff to the northeast, and some stuff to the east. There's some jets you got to blow up, some rockets, and some other bits and bobs. Go kill them. And that's what it does. So at that point, you can accept it, or you can chicken out back to the main menu to choose something else if the mission is not for your liking. The main view of the game, once it starts, is your standard first person from the cockpit of the helicopter. And I thought this was quite nicely done, actually. because the instrument panel doesn't take up the whole of the bottom screen like it does in most other of these games. It's modeled so you have windows, as you would do on these kind of rounded helicopters, to the bottom left and bottom right. So as well as the big window taking up the top half of the screen. So it actually feels, they've modeled it to sort of, give you that wraparound view as if you're inside the helicopter cockpit. And that's quite nice, I think. So it adds to the feeling of being there in that cockpit of the helicopter. Because it's also through these lower windows as well that you see your missiles launch and things like that when you fire them off, which is quite a nice touch. I thought that was quite good from a visual point of view. It's one of the nicer elements of it. Because it could have just been UI at the bottom, dashboard and helicopter stuff at the top. But they've tried a little bit to sort of go, actually, well, what could you see from your viewpoint? This is what you can see. All right, cool. There's many controls in this to get your head around, as is ever with these kind of things. You've got F1 brings up a map of the area, which you can zoom in on and move around and have a look and find stuff. F5 brings up the status of your chopper. Or was it F3, actually? Sorry, F3 brings up the status of your chopper. So you can check if it's been damaged.
Ouch.
I'm a child. F5 takes you back to the main menu, and F7 gives you an evaluation of your flying. Once you get going there, your helicopter starts off cold, so it's not running. You start it off by pressing the run stop key, which I guess run or stop. Yeah, okay, makes sense. And that starts the engine up, and the helicopter is controlled through a mixture of keys and joystick. So in the middle of the main window is a target reticule. So at your windscreen, essentially, is a target reticule. And you move this around with the joystick without pressing the fire button. Don't press the fire button, and you just move this around. So if you move the target reticule to the left, it moves all the way across the screen as well. And left and right, if it moves to the left or right, will turn you, the further it gets away to the right of the screen or the left of the screen, the sharper the turn, the sharper you'll bank, turn around. If you push it up or down, if you push it up, then you'll tilt your helicopter forwards, which will then start moving you forwards. If you've got speed up, if you pull it back, it'll tip you upwards and move you back. And that's how you get your speed up and everything. If you hold down the fire button, if you push up or down, this raises and lowers your altitude. I can't remember what they call it in the game itself. It's a weird...
Is it the pitch or the yaw or the choke or the
it
yoke or something?
began with a C. I didn't understand what it termed. Maybe a helicopter term, I'm not sure. But essentially, it lowers your altitude and pushing, so it increases that. So it pushes more power to it. So makes you go up and down, basically, which is what you want. Because when you push forward, you'll start to go down a bit. So you need to kind of put more power to going upwards. And that's holding the fire button down, pushing up and down. If you push the fire button and press to the right, that will cycle through your weapons, and you've got missiles. You've got three types of missiles, basically, and rock and sort of cannon gunfire. And if you push left and fire, that fires whatever weapon you've got. It's kind of an odd control system, but you kind of get used to it. Although I did fire off missiles by mistake quite a lot.
Yeah, it's easy done.
Yeah, a lot of these controls are replicated on the keyboard, apart from the firing of weapons and stuff. And you can also cycle the rotors for stuff. But I'll be honest, I didn't understand the part. I did press the button, and suddenly I was in a different part of the map. I didn't know what I'd done. So God knows what was going on then. The UI at the bottom, so your dashboard shows you your RPM, your reps per minute, your torque, your fuel level, how long you've been flying for, your altitude and bearing, along with your speed, your heading, and there's some other dials and readouts. But again, I didn't know what they were for. There's someone's got like a minus, goes down to a minus 20 and up to a positive 20. I couldn't figure them out. Like, I was flying around and stuff, and they were changing and moving. I was like, okay, they must be telling you something. It's standard fare, really, for this type of game. There's, so if you played or looked at one of these before, if you like this kind of thing and you like helicopter dials and readouts, you'll know the drill here. It's all what it is. We've said it before. Earlier, Chuck Yaeger. The speed of this game is what you would expect from something like this, although in the review it does say that it does play faster on a Commodore 128, so you might want to try it on that if you have one. Supposedly the demo takes 5 minutes to go through on a C64, it only takes 3 minutes on a C128, so I don't know. It's not particularly fast. I don't know if even on the C128 it would be that much faster, but who knows. The visuals themselves, there are a lot of green and blue, your typical view of the world. Although you can press I to go into infrared mode, and then it's a lot of brown and grey. And you can go over the sea where it's a lot of different kinds of blue and blue. So as these kinds of games go, you know what to expect. There's some stuff. There's a nice bit when you put your target reticule over a target on the floor, like a truck or something like that. Within there's a little sort of kind of like what we had in Driller in the middle, where it shows you what the graphic of what you're controlling. There's a little graphic pops up of what you're actually aiming at, like a little truck will appear there or a helicopter or something. That's quite nice. So that's quite a good sort of touch. So you know what you're shooting at. Look, as these kind of games go, it's a solid entry, I guess. If you like these things, there's some nice ideas. There's a good sense of putting you into the cockpit of the helicopter itself, and I guess for that it should be commended. With 5 missions though, it seems a bit limited. I mean, but I suppose there's 3 difficulty levels to go at. It might keep you going for a while if this kind of fight sim is your thing. It's not doing anything new over something like Gunship, I don't think. But as an alternative to that, and being a little more streamlined than that game was, it's quite quick to get you into it, loading aside. This may suit some players a little more. For me, though, it's just another entry into a genre I just don't think the C64 does very well because it's not powerful enough. And some nice touches can't overcome the jerky update and slow speed of it all for me. And despite the name, there's nothing really thunderous about it. The sound effects are your typical to simulate a chopper, and there's some explosions and stuff. It's okay if you like this sort of thing. And if it is, you'll probably dig this. It's not for me, though. These things never are because they're just too slow, and there's too much. It expects too much of me for too little reward. That's the problem I have with them. You have to put too much in and you get too little out, and this is no different. So that's what I thought of Thunderchopper. What about you?
Another simulator. 15 quid's worth of disc simulation here. Another one trying to steal the gunship crown, I think, here in this particular instance. It looks like they all do. A window giving insight into a series of blocky lines and colours all juddering around with an attempt at a soundscape that here revolved around a helicopter-style rotor blade sound and missiles that sounded like someone trying to suck up the last dregs of a milkshake with a straw.
Yeah.
It's okay. It had okay controls for this kind of thing if you go with it. And I can see how gunship lovers would really probably go for it too. And they'd probably get all giddy about it. And then maybe you'd get more out of it if you're into that kind of thing. And you've got to have that forgiveness that I mentioned before in the Chip Yaegers, and we've mentioned it many, many times. So I did like, as you did, some of the minor details in this. I did like the zoom on the map. It was actually quite a good zoom. It felt kind of almost satellite view where you sort of zoomed in. I quite like that. Mm-hmm. I like the guns being viewable in the corners when you fired. That is a nice touch. Those little things do make little differences. But that's perfume on a pig, really, for me. It's all good, these things, and there's decent ideas, but you either like this kind of juddering, horrific visual simulation of something or other, and you go with that and you find that a compelling helicopter-based experience, or like me, you're just reaching for the off button thinking, I've seen all this before and I didn't like it in all the other versions I've seen. I wasn't sure if there was I think it might have helped if this game had a little bit more story, maybe backstory or something. It didn't feel like there was a lot of thought to that. It's all simulator and no narrative, this one.
Yeah, I don't think there's any sort of through line between the missions. It's just 5 missions. Once you completed them, job done. Yeah,
so it's just fly this thing and you'll enjoy it because you're flying. And maybe you do. Maybe there's a thrill I'm not getting. I remember a friend of mine having, I think, one of the variations of these type of games on the Sinclair Spectrum. I forget which one. And they got really into it. They were like really cool. They're really into it now, pressing the engine start and slowly lifting off the ground, because they're levitating them, but lifting off the ground and all of those things. Maybe there's a space for, maybe there's a room for that kind of thinking. I don't know. It just never, like all these things, vector-based games, these kind of simulation games, and any combination of those, even with bits of 3D filled in, whatever, they're never reaching me because I don't like this kind of thing. It just doesn't appeal to me. But it does appeal to somebody. You got a good review, didn't it? 83%. It's not terrible. I think it's a little bit of an Aldi version of Gunship, really. But I think there's some little touches in that do render it a little bit interesting if you like that kind of game. But it ain't one that I'm ever going to get into again. Thankfully, I'll never have to load it again, and I won't.
No, neither will I. I will never actually need to think about Thunderchopper ever again.
No. And I don't doubt that that's also the name of a porn movie at somewhere.
Oh, it must be. Yeah, absolutely.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, from the 80s, yeah. Thunderchopper. Maybe the next one is as well. Let's move on to the next one. And Graham, you said you couldn't get this running. This was Trivial Fruit.
Well, I got most of it running, apart from the part that's the most important bit, which is where it's asking you questions. Yeah. So Trivial Fruit is a budget $2.99 Trivial Pursuit derivative with extra added fruity bits for good measure. So an odd little budget thing, this, isn't it? Like I said, a take on Trivial Pursuit. You start off with extensive loading in the game. There's a lot of loading in this one. And maybe that was just my emulated version.
I'm not sure what it is actually loading, though, because it can't be that title screen. Can't be that loading screen.
It must be question data, but it took ages to load. I got to the start screen, as it were, where you've got to press the function keys to do stuff. So you choose your number of players, You can type in your name and choose your number of players. Then you choose your question timing, because you can actually add extended timing or have no timing. Now, when it's at no timing, I never got to questions being asked of me, so I had no idea whether that affected it in any way. But either way,
it does, yeah.
I imagine it just gives you extended time. You can choose the long or the short version of the game. They're the different variants. And I think the difference is that one of them, you've got to fill your fruit card with, when you get the correct answers, I think you get that fruit. And there was a card on the screen, and now I didn't ever get to play it, but I'm guessing you either fill the card, or if it's the short game, I think you have to get 3 fruit of a kind. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe you can clarify that when you play it. But either way, I got that far. And then that was it. I got displayed with, it said loading the questions. And one thing that did grab me at this point was that it came with an option where I could load in the question set that was with it, or I could load in my own questions. So I'm guessing that somewhere with this, there's actually a question editing tool where you can enter your own questions and save them. So you can actually create your own Trivial Pursuit type game. I think that's pretty interesting. I mean, it must take ages, but I think that's pretty interesting to be able to do that, load and save your own questions into a game like this. That's pretty cool. That gives it a bit of longevity. Mm-hmm. These things always succeed in multiplayer. Unfortunately for me, it didn't succeed in any player, because that's as far as I got with it. I got the screen with 5 images of different fruits and a grid, and it just said questions loading, and they never loaded again.
Okay.
So what did actually happen after that?
Well, what happens so I did get the questions loaded. It is an odd combo, this Trivial Pursuit come Fruit Machine mashup. It's not something I thought I'd be seeing a lot of, but there you go. Yeah, so what happens is essentially the question section is that if you play the short game, you are right. You just got to get three of your fruit lit up, and then you win. If you have played the long game, you got to get them all lit up. So you got to answer 15. You got to get 15 questions right across them all. Now this does lead to problems, sort of thing, because the way the questions work is it'll give you the question at the top of the screen, and then it'll give you 5 options. One is correct.
Multi-choice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's multi-choice. 5 options. 1 is correct, 4 are not. Whichever one is right, is you get a fruit in that line. So I can't remember the fruits you actually have. There's like pear, apple, melon. Well, it's just a plum, melon, whatever. There's 5 of them.
5 of them, isn't there?
And so you've got to get them all. So this does rely on the right answer being in the right line. Because obviously, if you're waiting for one in line 4 and the correct answer is in line 2 or 3 or 1, or 5, you're never going to get it. It's like, hey, I need that. So it does have that kind of a weirdness to it. But it works. You ask the questions. You can change the timer actually in game as well while you're playing. So if you're thinking, because I set it to 10 seconds, and then I was like, that's not very long. So you can actually just press the button again to extend it or take the timer off completely, which is quite nice. So actually in game, you can, we've made a mistake there. Instead of having to quit out and restart, you can just change that. So that's quite a nice touch. There's a lot going in this. It is what it is. It's perfectly, you can have up to 4 players playing. I think you get asked the questions. The main problem with it, playing it now, is so much of the knowledge you need for answering the questions and things that may have been in the common culture of the time, they're lost.
Yeah.
How do you know? Do you know who Jane Asher married?
No, Mr. Asher.
Mr. Asher, yeah. Well, that's what I mean. It's like questions so when you find yourself just jabbing at an answer, maybe some you will probably know, like who created the atom bomb or who's responsible for creating the atom bomb or something like that. So some are more historical. There are different kinds of questions and things like that. But I found a lot of them where you need to know this from around this time. And it's like, okay. And that does age a lot of these games to make them quite bad. I don't think it's as bad as that one we played back ages ago, that Paul Norman one.
No.
But then again, probably because this was made in the UK, so it's maybe more UK based, where that Paul Norman was very American based. So, this is where you are. But it works. I mean, well, it worked for me.
And
for £3, if you have a group of friends, want a bit of a question answer section, you haven't got Trivial Pursuit, and you're thinking, well, we'll put this on and we'll play this. Yeah, it might be all right. I think it's a decent package. It's a little spare in the visuals and sound. There's not really thingy, but it's not really why you play this, is it? Cheap and easy to play alternative to the official game of Trivial Pursuit. Got 88%. Can see why, because I imagine they stuck this on in the Zapped hours and probably had a bit of a laugh with it and answered the questions and played Trivial Fruit with each other for a while. It's that kind of game. And when it works and it's okay, and like you said, it probably would take a while, but if you were that kind of person, just to put in a load of questions that you're getting out the papers and stuff and just building that data set up, you could probably, I've created a new set of questions, let's play again.
You might be waiting 6 months for it to load. No problem, is it?
You might be.
I meant to say, by the way, this is by Roy Titchard and it was presented by Pirate Software.
It is, yes. It is indeed.
I forgot to say.
Yeah, but there you go. Trivial Pursuit. I can see why it got 88%. It's just those kind of games work. They're all right, and this was okay. I do think we are looking at it from a British point of view, so it's a British game.
And I think it wins for me the dumb name award for a game, because it's just, you can't just throw those words together and go, that's the game, Trivial Fruit. Well, okay, could you think of a better name for that? I know you Trivial Pursuit, Fruit, okay, but maybe Trivial Per Fruit or something, I don't know, but it's like when a friend of mine did a game called Tetris, and the things falling down were just different animals instead, and they were in the shapes of the Tetris blocks, the Tetronymos, but they were little animals like dogs and cats.
See,
so it was Tetris.
Tetris, fair enough.
So Trivial Per Fruit would have been better.
But that wouldn't make any sense. Trivial Fruit, because it's a fruit machine. It's Trivial Fruit Machine.
Yeah, but no, we can't call it Trivial Fruit Machine. That's awful.
I know. Trivia Fruit.
Trivial Per Fruit, because it's instead of Trivial Pursuit. It doesn't make any sense, but it doesn't matter.
Okay.
You're connecting trivia with fruit.
Yeah, true.
Although it did make me think, when was the last time that someone asked you questions for fruit, just generally? I don't know if it's ever happened to me, but
I think it was last Thursday, I think. Where I live,
you go to Aldi.
Where I live was a strange town.
Yeah, they're not allowed to give you any kind of fruit in the local supermarket unless you answer riddles 3 or whatever.
Absolutely.
You cannot have these grapes unless you answer these riddles. Oh, really? It seems like a lot for... All right, I'll go to Tesco. No, I don't have to come here.
Yeah. So, Thursday. There you go. I really needed that pear as well. I didn't know the answer.
You get nothing for a pear.
Not in this game. Dear. Oh, let's move on. Let's move on quickly. Trivial Fruit is all right. Next up, it's full price one. This is The Adventures of Sammy Hagar, or known to you and I as Trantor, the Last Stormtrooper.
Trantor.
Indeed. All right, okay. Now, I know we moan quite a lot about games being too hard most of the time, but when I got to 76% completed on my second go of this, then I think something's flipped in the opposite direction here on this one. Anyway, so this is a conversion from, I believe, from the Spectrum original, where this first appeared. This was ported by Brian O'Shaughnessy, who had also made Dickie's Diamonds and The Adventures of Basil and Bond. So he'd had her hands in them.
Oh my God.
So yes. Anyway, for some reason, so that's what this is. It was released by Probe. You won't forget that on that title screen.
You won't, will you? So it dances and shouts it in your face.
Yeah. Anyway, for some reason, you've been abandoned alone. There's multiple stories to this. I'm going to go with this one. You've been abandoned alone on an alien planet, and your only hope of escape is to activate the planet's main computer that lies somewhere within the terminal building, and that's it. There's no other story. That's it. If you look on, I found like multiple images of the backs of cassette boxes, and some have more where your people that were on your spaceship have abandoned you and they cast you out and all kinds of stuff like this. The weird stories about it. Anyway. It's odd. I don't think they could really decide on it. That's it, really. Off you go. When the game loads, we are treated to... I'll talk about there's an intro for it before that, but let's talk about the game bit. We're treated to an animated Probe logo. I don't know why. Maybe the name of the game would have been better. Title screen usually has the name of the game, not a dancing logo for the company that made it. So that was kind of weird. Pressing the fire button, because that's all you can do, gets you the instructions on how to play, and they cannot be skipped, and they play every time you start a new game. Every time.
Oh my God, it drove me mad.
Yeah, it's quite frustrating to sit through each time. I played this about 3 or 4 times, but every time I was like, I have to listen to this again. Anyway, the game itself is a side-on bi-directional shooter view, but person shooter, so it's not you control a person, not a spaceship. You control the Last Stormtrooper, Trantor. So the bottom 2/3 of the screen are the scrolling play area, whilst the top third is taken up with your UI. So it's talking about the UI. The middle of the UI has a timer counting down from 90, and should this reach 0, it's game over. To the right of this is your health, which is a vertical bar which goes down as you get hit, and to the left is the fuel for your flamethrower, because that's the only weapon you have. The rest of the UI is just some fancy visuals taking up space.
Yeah.
That's it. We've just drawn some nice visuals to fill up some screen space. All right, okay. In the play space, though, where you actually play this game, you control Trantor. He's a large and well-grown single-colour sprite that is very well drawn and animated. Even if, did you notice this? And it looks like it in the screenshots, even if the sprites don't seem like they were put together properly, as there are 2 black lines that seem to imply the sprite positions are slightly off.
It's because it's 3 sprites stacked on top of one another and not done very well.
No, they haven't. So you move him left or right. With the left or right, you go up for jump, down for crouch, and fire button to send off a blast of your flamethrower. The game takes place along a series of wraparound corridors, which you must run down. So you can head left or right, whichever way you go, it'll just wrap around. You'll end up back at the beginning. There are 8 levels that are linked with lifts, and pressing up or down when you're on one of these will take you in that direction. So you find these lifts that are about these levels, these corridors, you press up, it goes up, it goes down to the next one. On each corridor, there are 3 things that you will find, mostly. There is a terminal, it's like a computer, which will reset the timer back to 90 and give you a letter of the code you need to activate the main computer. There are some fuel cells to refill your flamethrower, and there is a cupboard to search, which may give you some health, a pass card, some fuel, or various other items. And that's it. If you try and search it again, it'll tell you off. Stormtrooper, you have already searched this.
You've been in there. God's sake, move on.
Stop. Yeah, that's quite annoying, though, because you have to pull down to search it. And sometimes you want to crouch when there's aliens coming at you, and you pull down, and suddenly you get into this loop of annoying.
Don't even get me started on
annoying. So you move from level to level, looking for the 3 things, and you find the lift, and you move down. And that's it, really. Whilst you do this, you are constantly beset by floaty, completely out-of-place enemies that are blue, shades of blue, and do not fit the surroundings at all. They're just weird designs of sprites because you need to be beset by stuff. So they said, just design some sprites. All right. I think they look like they're from another game, just stuck in this. As you delve deeper into the levels, you will also get attacked by alien Yaeger knockoffs. And they look like they fit this game much better. Don't know what the sprites are, though. It's weird. Yeah. But everything is killed by one blast of the flamethrower. So there's no difference in how to deal with these things that bother you. You've got one option. You can duck under some, but it's a pain in the ass. You can try and jump over them, but I'll tell you why that's a problem in a minute. You just got to try and shoot them with your flamethrower and hope you make connection. There's a real lack of depth or challenge to this, as each corridor is really quite short and only takes about a minute to run around it, and thus you find everything it has to offer and head down the lift to the next one. So there's only 8. You can start to see how you can get 76% in about 5 minutes. The main issue is just that you are constantly bothered by the annoying enemies and nothing seems to be considered. You are a massive sprite, so the corridor is not big enough to cope with your jump. You almost take up the height of the corridor. You can only fire your flamethrower in a small percentage of the corridor because you can't aim it up or down, so it fires from your waist straight out. And thus, if you jump, you'll hit the ceiling quite quickly, so you can get the flamethrower up slightly a little bit. Or if you crouch, it'll move down a little bit. So it fires for the problem here, because there are many enemies that attack from the bottom or the top of the corridor, and they are out of reach of your flamethrower, and you can't hit them, and it's too awkward to jump over them and too awkward to duck under them, so you're constantly getting hit by things you can't avoid. That's the problem. The main sprite is also single color, the enemies are multicolor, and the backgrounds are a mix of tech, caves, and alien style backgrounds. None of these gel together into a cohesive visual style. None. Everything looks like it's from 3 different games. Looks like the background's from a different game, looks like the sprites are from a 2D shooter, space shooter, and the main sprite looks like it should be in some kind of thing like something else. We saw this similarly in that, what was that other one? The really hard one where you were walking from the left to the right, flick screen one. Not Elidon, began with an Exelon.
That's right.
It had a similar style where it had the single color sprite and really multicolored backgrounds, and it really doesn't work. Not for me, anyway. The sound is a mix of decent sound effects and tunes, I guess, but nothing really stands out. It's all right. There's some nice tunes. The opening sequence, though, I'll just come back to the opening sequence. When the game loads, you see it's really quite nice. It's really nice visuals. You think, oh, this is going to be quite interesting. You see, basically, it sees the player's ship travel down a really long mine shaft before it lands on a platform. And then your Stormtrooper, who is also much smaller and a multicolored sprite here, jumps out, turns around, beckons for people to follow him. And I don't know why he does that, because he's the only survivor. So who is he beckoning to? Makes no sense. Who's he waving at? It's only him. None of it makes any sense, really. On top of that, the game is, despite being set all the time, really easy. So, like I said, 76%. Once again, we have an ill-conceived tech demo disguised and released as a full-price game. If I'd bought this back then and within 10 minutes of playing gotten 76% completion, I would not have been happy. This is a game designed for screenshots and not for playing. So just to round off, to paraphrase Steptoe, it's for looking at, not for playing. And that's what I thought of Trantor.
So true.
Yeah, what did you think?
Nice intro, wasn't it? Really, that spaceship landing, it's all right. The title screen's lovely as well, really good. Way better than the Spectrum version.
Yeah.
And you have to draw direct comparisons. This game was kind of lauded on the Spectrum as being really good graphically, and it is. And the 64 version's kind of almost ran. There's some really nice touches, but it's not quite as good in graphic terms, really, although it is slightly faster and the animation's better. But the opening intro screen is misleading, but it makes for good screenshots, as you rightly pointed out. Mm-hmm. The game itself, however, well, it's just a run and jump and shoot and search. We've played loads of these kind of games. This is like a a really weird version of Sacred Arm of Antiriad, but without any of the fun or compelling reason for being in it. So it's got nice looking backgrounds, such as they are, but like you said, they're too small and you're too big. Or maybe you're, I don't know. Yeah, but either way, you just the scaling's all kind of crazy wrong. The enemies just float around getting your way and they don't fit. They don't fit into this. Bit like an Antiriad in reverse, because in that game you were a really good sprite and the enemy sprites didn't quite fit. This is kind of reverse logic. So you're a high-res sprite in a multi-color sprite world, and it was the opposite way around the other way, wasn't it? It was some of the sprites anyway. Mm-hmm. So you are a large at least a 3 sprites. He's 3 sprites big. The world's not that sprite big. He is kind of a big old thing, isn't he? Single color, nicely animated, I suppose, but the style of the player sprite is at odds with the rest of the game completely. But it suits a Spectrum game, but it doesn't suit a Commodore 64 game because there's a kind of a mishmash that doesn't quite work. As we've rightly pointed out, as you've noted, the sprite technique leaves it with black bars going through where you've clearly got raster lines or something, or some kind of multiplexing going on where they haven't quite connected the dots properly. So you end up with this kind of obvious looking 3 sprite logic thing, which is a bit disappointing because that isn't on the Spectrum version. The animation's okay, but it's cheap animation. Now, by that, I mean that when you're running left and your first time, you're like, wow, this running animation's actually pretty good. But when you turn around, it just kind of runs. It's like someone just flipped the sprite in an axis. So it just runs there's no turning around animation, which I would have expected in this a little bit. So when you just literally flip, and he almost does like a Brucey bonus kind of, he puts his thumb to his chin as well when he sort of jumps and does that, because you can't really jump sort of diagonally properly because there's clashing where it hits the roof or it hits the ground, and it's not just, you're too big. Too bloody big in this stupid corridor, and it don't work. Like you said, that immediately affects your ability to shoot your flamethrower, which isn't a flamethrower because it doesn't shoot out flames. It just spurts out a blodge of flame. So it must be like lit wax or something. I don't know, but it's just a bit. And so that really means that you're just shooting things in the middle of the screen, like you say. Not very exciting, that. So you've got this kind of not particularly well-rendered sprite, albeit that it is nicely animated and drawn, but it's a direct rip-off of the Spectrum version, so they've just taken the graphics and put them in the C64, with some limited animations for jumping and the running and all of that, as I've already said, but there isn't any more to it, and it is ridiculously easy. I mean, I must have pretty much got through this game, and almost by luck, really. I wasn't actually trying to do it, I just seemed to be, and I thought, am I good at this game, or is this just easy? And then it is just easy, isn't it? I mean, there's no real challenge for this. Everything can be one-shotted, which means you feel like you've got superpowers anyway. There's so many items to find. They're not hard. You stumble across more fuel and things almost all the time. It's not like there's limitations of all these things. It's always good to know that when you're going into a mysterious, deadly environment, they've been kind enough to supply you with everything you need to kill everything all the time. Yeah, it's always nice that, handy. You know.
Yep.
Now, and ironically, I know it's a completely different game in every respect. But when you play something like The Last of Us many, many years later, finding the ammunition in that entire game is that's a real key part of the game because it is really, really difficult to find. That makes that part of the game challenging because you got to think about it a bit. If you don't have that limitation, you don't have to think about anything, do you? Apart from running, jumping, shooting things in the middle, doing that endlessly. So it's boring. Nice screenshots, nice to look at, but boring. Music wasn't bad, quite nice. That opening screen, like you say, Probe. Did you know it was by Probe? I meant to say, but did you know it was by Probe in case you missed it? But it just this to me is a game with they did enough to make the screenshots look nice for the advert, but the game wraps around it. Boring. Sorry, but it is. Shame, really, because I think this probably, if they thought about it a bit more, could have been a bit more interesting.
Well, we're going to see this kind of thing, and like I said, we've seen it before, sort of thing, but we're going to see versions of this kind of left and right running. And
there's loads of them.
But we're going to see really good versions of this later on. We're going to get things like Hawkeye, Strider, and things like that.
And things like that.
Draconis. There's tons of them. Like you said, Antiriad and then, but those kind of, but I suppose that's flick screen, but these kind of scrolling, I mean, even things like Ghosts and Goblins, I guess, but what they do is they have a sensible size sprite.
Yeah, that was the thing though with this, wasn't it? It was the big sprite, and I think because it's not a sprite on the Spectrum, it's actually slower running scrolling wise on the Spectrum, but it is a nice animation and it's kind of big, and it lends itself to that high res kind of style of a Spectrum, I think.
Yeah, and it reminded me of that other one, which I don't even know if it got a C64 port. That's that big dragon one, Thanatos.
Yeah, Thanatos has got a C64 port.
Oh, does it?
There we go. Yeah, we'll come across that with the Hubbard soundtrack, yeah.
All right, okay, yeah. So it reminded me of that as well, which I think started its life on the Spectrum as well, didn't it?
It did, yeah, with a giant dragon and the fire breathing in there.
Yeah, it's that. And Saboteur and things like that.
Yeah. Funny enough, this reminded me of that more than anything else in a weird way.
Yeah, I could see why, yeah. But it's just ridiculously stupidly easy to the point where there's barely any game here.
Yeah. It was just I tire of these running games like this very quickly anyway, but when they're as easy as this, I mean, I nearly completed this by accident, so that tells you how easy it is.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Imagine spending a tenner on this, getting home, and then like with your 15-year-old reflexes, 16-year-old reflexes, you'd be like through this in a hot knife through butter. You'd be like, where'd that go?
I remember getting this from J&M Software, and I remember renting it because I remember being wowed by that loading screen. The actual, not the animation spaceship and that, the one before that where you see the Trantor, the rock musician firing his flamethrower.
Yeah.
And that is an amazing graphic on the C64. It really is way better than any of the other versions. So that's a really nice thing, but it's a lot of money to pay for that, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. You basically paid for a demo.
Yeah, you did. Again.
Yeah. Shame, really. We could have been all right, but just not playing to the C64 strength again. Fed up seeing these games which just port straight over. Oh, well, never mind. Right, let's move on quickly down the corridor into our last one. Our last T title, and Graham, it's another oldie, but it's still a goodie. Track and Field.
Track and Field is copyright Atari Inc. Apparently, anyway.
So it's a Konami game.
It is a Konami game, but according to Lemon 64, it's Atari Inc. copyrighted. Anyway, I'm not going to debate all that. As far as I'm aware, it's Konami, and it's coded by Joe Simcoe, Dan Danoff, and Matt Decker, who to me sounded like a sort of a Rush tribute band.
They are. Just to say though, two of them will go on to work on World Games.
Yeah, no, and I'll come to sort
like
of
a Rush tribute band. Yeah.
So the minute this starts, the first thing you're going to think of is that ain't no Chariots of Fire by Matt and Galway, is it? It's
No,
not.
it's not.
It's Chariots of Fire, well, grant you, but this is the Aldi version. It's the Lidl version. It's a bit cheap, that. But this is the official conversion of the 1983 Konami arcade. Now, I played a lot of this arcade because I think it's one of the arcade classics. I think it's one of the unsung, a little bit of the unsung arcade classics. I know people do like it a lot, but for me, this is up there with Kung Fu Master and Space Invaders to some extent, and Star Wars, and some of those arcades that they were the kind of the founding fathers of my arcade experience. As I went to arcades, I came across this one a lot, and a few others that were similar to this, but I remember playing this one quite a lot. It's got simple events, so it's obviously it's a multiplayer, multi-event type sports type game, and it's kind of, not the Godfather, because I think you found a link to like the Godfather of them all, but I think in terms of arcade, I don't think there was many in 1983 that were like this.
No, I think this is the first arcade one. I think there's a couple of home computers, and Activision's Decathlon had come out the month before.
So it's kind of sort of it's sort of harking back to a kind of tradition of arcade. So it's in what that means really is it's simple in its in the way that it's presented. So you've got 6 events in this: the 100-meter sprint, the long jump, the javelin, the 110-meter hurdles, the hammer throw, and the high jump. And here in the C64 version, you compete in these with combinations of waggling your joystick, tactical waggling, jumping and pressing fire, and that can sometimes be the jump or your throw or your changing your angle. Now, I couldn't remember in the arcade. I don't think it was waggle in the arcade. This was push button. So this was, you had to hammer the left-right button, I think.
It was.
And then press the button. So it was all button. But either way, you've got a waggle, you've got a joystick, so you may as well waggle it.
You could do the I'm doing the finger movement, couldn't you? To do
you could do it like that.
That's how good players did it. They did sort of triple finger over each button.
I developed a trick where if you had a power ball, you could just roll it left and right across left and right really quick, and you'd just like reach ridiculous speeds. And whatever which way you did it, that was the kind of the way it played. Simple controls. So you hammer the buttons. I mean, these arcades were always broken inevitably because people hammered the buttons so much. But anyway, that's what it was. And so you compete in the events, whether it's one player or multiplayer, and you take your turn, and obviously you've got to try and get over the threshold to get to the next event. And if you do that, and mercifully, and most of the thresholds aren't ridiculous in this, so that you will get there, I think. 100 meters, I think you've got to do it below 12 seconds or something like that. And the long jump, I think you've got to do over 7 meters or something like that. I can't remember the precise requirements, but either way, you've got to get over that. And you've got 3 attempts to do that. So you've got to qualify in any of those 3 attempts to get to the next phase. So in true arcade tradition, obviously, if you don't make it through any of those, well, it's, you didn't do it. So boo-hoo and everything else. And you've got 3 attempts, 3 lives, really, end of game. So that's all there is to the arcade. It's probably one of the founding fathers of multi-sports games. It's actually quite a nice little arcade. Very simple, and it was also kind of already been done on the C64, right? So we've already had quite a few games that have kind of milked that teat. So this is quite late in the day for a conversion of this type. But this arcade conversion is very accurate, and I think it's worth taking a moment to sort of take a minute and look at it and go, actually, this ain't all that bad. So I would say that this is probably one of the best arcade conversions I've seen so far on the C64, because it is alarmingly accurate to the arcade. The look of it, the way it sounds, the sound is basic, but it sounds like the arcade. The sprites are a little bit chunkier, but they look and animate like the arcade. The backgrounds are pretty much the arcade. The speed of the game There's a couple of little graphic glitches that were on there, but the speed and the way the game plays, whether it's waggling or otherwise, is the same. It plays the same. You waggle the joystick, you get to the end with the javelin, you got to press your button and get the angle and zoom that, and it zooms off and flies through the air. All of those things are here. It's all here, all of it. In interstitials, you get the world record, the little tunes that play, the little animations of when you win. They're all here, all of it. Now, admittedly, at 1983, this isn't going to break any records of being a super complicated game to do, but they've really done it justice here. So it's not like it's failing in any way. It's just late to the party, just really late, because you've had hypersports, which is kind of really cool, and different events. But okay, you've had hypersports and summer games, and you've had all these amazing things, world games, and all these things that have come before this. So this is just—it's like turning up to the party with everyone's fast asleep and they're passed out, and you've come in like party, like a crate of beer in your hand, everyone party. Oh man, you're too late. It's like go home. We're all tired now. It's crazy how it's so late in the day. But anyway, so it's a very faithful conversion of a very brilliant arcade classic. It got a bit of a kick in from Zapped because they said, A, it's old, and B, why is it full price? Because it's so old. And okay, maybe they're right. I don't know. But I think let's take a moment to appreciate the greatness of Track and Field, because Track and Field is a great arcade and it's dead easy to get into, and it's got real simple arcade logic. You don't have to try hard at these events to get good at them. And there is a real challenge about getting the angle right on the javelin or on your shot put or on your hammer throw or on the high jump, and trying to navigate the nuances of that and trying to get the further and the long jump things. It does have that. There's no doubt about it. It has these little nuances that make you want to sort of replay it. And it's dead easy. It loads in, it's easy. You're straight off the bat, no messing about, all ready to go. I like it for that. I think the price is stupid, and it is really late to this party. And there's loads of games that kind of do this sports thing, probably maybe better than this, I don't know. But this is a great, faithful version of a classic arcade game. And I think it's worth giving it a bit of a pat on the back and a bit of look back and going, you know what? You were late to this party, but I still love you. I think you're still a great little game. Well, come in and have a drink with you. I'll have a drink with you because you're still pretty cool. I liked it then. I like this version, so I thought it was really cool. And revisiting it reminded me of simpler arcade games that, when they're converted, done really well. On the C64, there really isn't much difference between some of those games, which if you really do it right and pay it justice, and they did that, I think, with buckets here. What about you?
Yeah, just to say that this actual conversion was done in 1984. So it's an early conversion that's been released 4 years later at full price.
Why?
That's the thing, and that's what I think Zach were pointing out. So this is the original 1984 conversion. They've released it at full price. Konami have, because I think Konami have looked back and gone, you know what? I don't think we've ever released that in the UK, and I don't know if they ever had. So they've put it out at full price, and it is a strange thing because you've got Decathlon, which was released on Firebird. You've got Hess Games. These games are already £2. So it is strange but put the price aside, put that to one side, and everything you said about Track and Field is spot on. It's a great arcade game, and this is a good conversion because it was done quite quickly after it came out September 1983 in the arcade. It was a very big hit over the Christmas period. Went on to make loads of sold loads of units of it, and it just got ported everything. I think in 1984, the C64 version was done by Atari Soft and Konami, and it's a very good conversion. And so I don't really have a lot to say beyond what you've said. What it did lead me to do, though, was it does have and the good thing about this is it does have most of the touches. All the events are there, and trying to get through the events. You only get one go at the sprint events, by the way. If you fail them, you're out. You don't get 3 lives on them.
That makes sense, though.
Yeah, it does. That's like the arcade. It is missing a couple of the little small touches. Like it doesn't have the speech of the arcade.
Yeah, you're not going to get that.
No, that 4.24 meters. That really cool. I always used to like that speech. Yeah, that speech was great. The little guy who measures your
was that
jump.
In Track and Field Arcade, though? Was that what's the one with the swimming as the first event?
That's Hypersports. They're in both of them, because what it led me to do was boot MAME up and have a look at both Track and Field and Hypersports this afternoon.
Right.
So I had to play both of them, and so I could compare and contrast. And so that's when I remembered, because I was like, oh yeah, this is all button controlled for these games. Because I've forgotten that, because obviously this is a waggler, full-on waggler in it on the C64.
It is.
And so there's really cool little touches, like you said, with the javelin being able to, if you get enough speed up and put your angle at 80%, you'll get the bird. You'll get the bird out of the sky, so that's in there. So that's all good. Just like little speeches like the touch and the guy measuring your long jump as he sort of as he goes across the field. I always like that bit. But it's a really good version. I can't really knock it. I really enjoyed and going on MAME this afternoon and playing Hypersports and Track and Field. I had a great time. Playing those. It just reminded me how much I love those games.
Simpler
they're
times,
so
aren't
good.
they?
They're brilliant and they're so good in the arcade. And both Hypersports and Track and Field on the C64 are really, really good conversions. I mean, when it boots up, when MAME boots up, I think it says it's on a I can't remember the chip. It's a 1.5 megahertz C502 or something, or C something or other, a 6802 or something. And it's on a 3.5 Z80. That's what it was used. So it's got two chips in that one. So that's all. So obviously, probably one for the sound and one for the main code. So they're not that far advanced of the C64, and that's why these things work, because they're built around the same time and you can see it. But the sprites look really good in this. Everything looks good. The crowd is the same as it does that flashing when you think it in the background.
Yeah, I thought it was very good.
I like it. It got 61%, and I imagine that's the price, bringing all that down, because it's as addictive as it ever is. And I think that this was above and beyond that weird one, that Microsoft one that I sort of linked to. And maybe Decathlon was to some degree, but I think this was the forerunner to the game series and things like that. I think this was the breakout, and so I would argue that this was, even though they looked at because they took away the waggle and stuff, but stuff like Daily Thompson's Decathlon, all that kind of stuff, this is where it all came from. I love Track and Field, and this is a good conversion. I enjoyed my time with this, and I enjoyed going on to MAME and playing the others, and so that explains as well why the Chariots of Fire rendition's not as good as the Galway one, obviously. So 1984. But no, good stuff. What a great game. What a nice one to end on.
Yeah, good.
And I don't think I ever actually played the C64 version of this.
No, I hadn't, which is why I was quite astounded by how close it was to the arcade.
Yeah.
So I did a bit of YouTubing, obviously, to look at the arcade, and was like, this is actually pretty damn close.
Yeah.
But I remembered why I liked it. And like I said, I always get this one. And is it Hypersports that's got the vault in it, the vault and jump in it?
Yeah. Hypersports has got the swimming, clay pigeon shooting, vault and jump, weightlifting.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't remember the other ones. Yeah.
Was it yes, because there was one of them that was used in a really strange. Do you remember that game show that featured a computer game where they would play Hypersports as part of one of the rounds in the game? I think it was on BBC Kids TV.
Not really.
And I can't remember what it was. It was like it was a quiz show based on computer games, and then they played like a level of Hypersports at the end at the arcade. Where they had to do one of the events of it. I forget what it was called now. I can't remember who hosted it. Some woman who hosted it. I can't remember. I'll do a bit of digging and see if I can find out what it was. But I remember that.
I will say though, just as a final comment, the hammer throw is still an ass and always will
when
be.
You throw it to the back all the time.
You got to wait until you got enough speed as you were spinning, and then it's so hard, that hammer throw. It's where I always fail in the arcade. I always get to the hammer and then fail. Always.
I think that show, by the way, was called First Class.
That rings a bell, actually.
With Debbie Greenwood hosting it.
Yeah, I don't know. But there you go. Track and Field. It's showing its age a bit, but...
Yeah, it was definitely First Class, because I sort of quick YouTube look, and it's got somebody playing the arcade. It looks like an arcade version anyway. It's definitely Hypersports they're playing. So how cool is that? Weird. Yeah. It would be on TV.
That is cool. Great game. They're both great classic arcade games, and they deserve all the plaudits they get. And this is a decent conversion. So there you go. And that's it. That's it for this week. What have we looked at? We've looked at Chuck Yaeger's Advanced Flight Trainer. Well, you did. Yeah. And I tried to understand someone German playing it. We wondered why something was called Radius when it should have been called Diameter. Maybe Diameter's not so cool. I don't know. And it wasn't very good anyway. Alternative World Games, which annoyed us with its stupid controls. Survivors, which was an okay-ish Boulder Dash maze game, Repton type thing.
Budget.
On a budget. Tetris, which was a flickery version of Tetris, but still Tetris. So I have to, go have a cold shower and wean myself off that now. We have Thunderchopper, disappointingly not about the Adventures of Thunderlips, but about a helicopter with a couple of nice touches. Trivial Fruit, strange game. Trantor, the Last Stormtrooper, stupidly easy and over-sprited. And finally, Track and Field, a solid conversion of an arcade classic. There you go. That's your lot for this week. We continue. We've got 2 more to go, 2 more episodes to get through January. Next week, what are we looking at? We've got Cosmic Causeway.
Interesting.
PMH Pegasus. Rygar. Rygar.
Very good, and I remember.
Superstar Ice Hockey. Here we go.
Hey girl, hey boy.
They're followed by Bobsleigh. So we're in full-on ice mode.
Nice mode.
Mean Streak, which could be anything.
Yep.
Don't know. Airborne Ranger.
Okay.
That's an interesting game, I seem to remember. Inspector Gadget.
Oh, Lord. That game is awful.
Well, we'll see that next week. And finally, Skate or Die.
Oh, another one.
Yeah, rah, rah, rah. It's a Rob Hubbard one, isn't it?
It is.
The Rob Hubbard rah, rah guitars, isn't it? That's
Guitar
what we've got coming
samples,
up next week, along with what was TV, along with what's going on in UK TV as well. So we've got that going on. Just like to say, just as ever, if you wish to support the podcast, you can do that, obviously, by going over to our Patreon. And going to patreon.com/zapped to the past, where you can sign up at either at any of the levels that are there. It all helps. It's all good. The higher levels get you access to our Discord. They get you early episodes of stuff. So yeah, I think, but you may have seen Battle of the Pilots has come out now by the time this is released, so it's gone out for normal, but you could have had that weeks ago when we put it out to the patrons. And you also get the episodes of this early as well. They come out on the Friday rather than the Monday, so you can have this for the weekend. You get access to our Discord and chat. You get to ask us questions for Ask the Podcast. You get to chat with us and all that kind of stuff. And it's cool. That's what we do. You get mentioned in our shout out every month, and you also get the nice feeling of supporting something that you like and like listening to and helping us out and getting us, making sure we can afford to pay for the subscriptions that we use to put this thing together. And that would be really cool. So that's just over at patreon.com/zapped to the past. Anything you can do with that. So that's really cool. We really appreciate that. And that's that. Have you got anything more that you think we need to add, Mr. Raddings?
No, not at all. I think do take a moment to go and listen to Battle of the Pilots if and when you choose to, because it's out there and ready for you to listen to. But you could, like you say, be listening to it a lot earlier than you have. Could have been.
It is. And also let us know what you think to it as well. Because it's cool, because it's our first one with something different. We do have more plans to do more of them with lots of ideas for that. And so we think it's good, but obviously that's us. If you want to let us know, suggest stuff, do so. We've got loads of ideas, but we're always, we listened to stuff when we were starting this off. And so that's always cool. So let us know what you think to that. That would be really excellent. But there you go. I think we'll finish there and go and cool down because it's really hot in here still. Really hot. It's been a hot week. So I'll just say I've been a very hot Adrian Mills.
I've been a very sweltering Graham Raddings.
And you've been listening to a rather sweaty Zapped to the Past. And we'll see you again, hopefully a little cooler and a little less damp next week.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zapped to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zappedtothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and, well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zappedtothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZapTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zapped to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.